Jungle.
Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is December 10th, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
So, we got an email to go over. We got a question sent in to us, and it ties well into our first thing. So, you want to go over the question we received, Bobby?
Yeah, this was a question that was received by our friend Steven. He's been on our podcast before. He was on our 100 Days episode. You can search that one if you like. He was on that episode. But he asked the question, is Minnesota a swing state? And the reason that ties into what we're talking about is, as you know, Al Franken this week announced that he was going to resign from the United States Senate due to allegations of sexual misconduct, sexual assault. We're going to get to that story here in a second. But first we want to answer, is Minnesota a swing state? Well, first let's look at the 2016 presidential results. Trump only lost Minnesota by 1.5% of the vote. Or, in terms of numbers of votes, about 44,000 votes. There were over 2.7 million votes cast in Minnesota in 2016. And we only lost by 44,000. Gary Johnson, third party, got 112,000 votes. With the number of people that voted Libertarian, most of those people otherwise would be voting Republican if they weren't, as happy with Trump. So right there, if even half of those people vote Republican, we win Minnesota.
Yeah.
The last time Minnesota has gone to a Republican, however, was 1972, when Nixon won every single state except for Massachusetts. Even in the Reagan years, it went blue both times. In terms of party registration numbers, however, Minnesota does not register voters by party, so it's not possible to see how the party registration numbers have swung since the election compared to other states where you can actually track that data. However, if you consider the fact that Minneapolis has a very large Somali immigrant population that's causing a lot of troubles, and with the fact that rural voters are starting to swing extremely far rightward, and Minnesota, being up around states like Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that whole
have gone
rightward
very
shift,
red.
That whole rightward shift is pulling Minnesota along with it. You put all that together, in 2020, Minnesota is going to be a swing state. According to the Cook Partisan Voting Index, or the CPVI, which measures how Republican or Democrat a state is, Minnesota is a D+1 state.
D+1,
Is a
so
D+1.
very on the edge, could go either way.
Yeah, keep in mind, Alabama, where Roy Moore is, Alabama is a R+14 state. So pretty much what that means is as long as you have an R next to your name, you're going to win anything. Texas is a D+8 state. It's slowly starting to go, it's becoming less red over time. It's not really becoming more blue, but it is becoming less red. That is the truth. But Texas is still R+8. California is a D+12. So California is as Democrat as Alabama is Republican. Whereas some states like New Hampshire, as well as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, are all actually labeled even.
Even.
Equally Democrat and Republican, could go either way. But those things, you're going to see those start to shift right. Even Florida, we consider that a swing state. That's an R+2, according to the Cook Partisan Voting Index. So you can see what that voting index actually does. Minnesota only being a D+1 state, absolutely, it is going to be a swing state in 2020. Trump held, I think, one rally in Minnesota late on in the campaign when it looked like it was going to be close. As much as people do rallies in like Pennsylvania and Florida, you're going to see that in Minneapolis, in St. Paul in 2020. There's going to be a Trump rally there every month.
Yeah, it never seemed like it was on the board. I always predicted it was going to go blue in 2016.
Same.
But with as little effort that he put towards Minnesota and coming so close, there's no reason not to push for it this time over, especially when Florida, it's going to be a hard race. You can still win it, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I would say before we move on to the Al Franken story in terms of Minnesota being a swing state is as long as you don't have a lot of dissenting third-party votes in 2020, we should be able to win Minnesota. That's my biggest issue, is there'll be, enough people will still be mad at Trump or won't be happy with the Democrats. If they're not happy with the Democrats, fine, they can vote with the third party, but you need to make sure those would-be Republican Party voters do not dissent and vote Libertarian or anything else.
Yeah, dissenting votes in swing states doesn't help anyone out.
Yeah.
But, so that was a question that was emailed into us. You can email us more questions. We'll answer them at the top of the show. The email is trumprepublicradio@gmail.com, and that's in the description.
But moving on to, I guess, the first story then, Al Franken this week announced that he was going to resign from the United States Senate because of those same allegations that we mentioned before.
So this has been something we've been following for the last couple of weeks. His quote-unquote resignation wasn't actually a resignation. He said that he'll be leaving in the next couple of weeks. So it's kind of weird. Could he renege on what he's going to do? Who knows? But, I don't like Al Franken. I think he's terrible. I'm glad he's leaving. He's going to be replaced with the Democrats, so it doesn't really matter, but it's a symbolic victory, if anything.
Well, either way, he used his quote-unquote resignation speech to pretty much just trash Trump and trash Roy Moore. He even said that he didn't believe he had done anything worth resigning. I mean, dude, you're caught on camera groping a woman who was sleeping.
Yeah.
You can't say that you can't say there's no evidence against you in this matter. But, it, like you said, it was a quote-unquote resignation speech. There was nothing there to actually, him saying, I am resigning, as of today. It was like in the coming weeks. Congress is about to go on their Christmas and New Year's break here in a couple of weeks. So if he stays in before the end of that, he might resign over the holidays. It's very possible. Or what I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking about is that it's possible that he might not even resign. In that once Roy Moore wins on Tuesday, which, Roy Moore is going to win on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with saying that. He's going to use that as an excuse to be like, if he's going to be allowed in, why should I be forced to resign? I'm just going to stay here.
Well, the thing with this is it's part of, Me Tooism, which we're going to talk a lot on the show about Me Tooism.
Yes.
He is the first real big victim of the hashtag Me Too campaign. And for the Democrats to maintain their supposed high moral ground in these issues, he has to resign. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't resign, they lose that power to hold over Republicans, even though so far Me Tooism has only really hurt the left. Until this week, we did see a Republican casualty, but we'll get into that later.
And what's interesting is it seemed like this whole thing was designed to take down Republicans. I think that's pretty clear. They went after it with Trump. They went after it with Roy Moore. But it's escalated and had a snowball effect to the point where they're realizing, wait a minute, most of these people are actually on our side that are being accused.
I would say Me Tooism really started with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
That's really what opened the gates for it. But, he's a liberal. Al Franken, he's a liberal. He's a casualty. John Connors, he's another casualty. It has been on our side, so, I'm fine with it. Here's the thing, though, truthfully, if our guys can be convicted of these things, I want them to resign too.
Yes.
And I don't really care that Al Franken's resigning if he's not being convicted for anything. I'm okay with him staying in. If he wants to do this on his own, though, that's fine. But the pressure amongst his own party, especially the women in the Democrats, they're not going to let him do anything else.
And, here's something else you got to put in mind. Al Franken, if he does stay in, is up for re-election in 2020. So if 2020 becomes a swing state, and you have a Democrat running for re-election in the Senate there, that push of everything moving to the right, plus people would still be on top of him for not resigning at that point. Who knows how many more women might come forward and say things. I don't think he is going to be easily re-elected as he's been before. But 2018, Amy Klobuchar is the senator from Minnesota. She is up for re-election. So if Al Franken doesn't resign, and she's a woman, she's going to face one of two options. Either say, I'm a woman allowing and standing by a man who's been accused of sexual assault simply because he's a member of my party. That doesn't bode well for her. Or if he doesn't resign and she doesn't stand by him, then it shows, wait a minute, there's, he doesn't have the support. Either way, the Republicans, or at least the right, can use that against her in the primary, or not really in the primaries, but in the general election next year.
Yeah.
And so I still tend to think that she will get reelected, even though I just went on the whole 5-minute speech about why it's a swing state. I still think she probably will get elected, but I kind of hope he doesn't resign, because that's going to put a lot of pressure on her from both sides, to both stand by him and stand against him. That split does not help her very well. And I think you can maybe get enough votes for a Republican to maybe get elected senator in Minnesota. It's possible, and I think that's the chance that you need to go after, whether or not Al Franken resigns.
Yeah. I think Keith Ellison's not a U.S. senator. I think
just a representative.
I think Keith Ellison will be the one that will try and take that seat from Al Franken at this point. If not, him getting gifted the seat from Franken resigning, he'll be the guy that's going to try and take it in the 2020 primary. But, who knows?
If I was the Democrats right now, I would want Al Franken to resign, and I would want to replace him with Keith Ellison.
He'd be the best guy you have out there.
Keith Ellison is from the 5th District of Minnesota, which I haven't looked up where that is, but it's a D plus 26 district, so extremely, extremely Democrat. You don't have to worry about losing a House seat if you do that. So, take that as it is. But I think that that's what they should do. I don't really want to give Democrats advice on the show. Not that they're listening, but if I was the Democrats, that's what I would want to be doing right now. Fortunately for us, it looks like that's not what they're doing.
Yeah. I don't know who they have in line, to replace Franken, but Ellison would be their best pick. But, other than that, he hasn't officially resigned yet. We'll see what he does, I guess, in the coming weeks. Want to go into some Mueller stuff?
Let's do it. So there's a couple of stories about the Mueller probe that came out this week, but the big one, there's a couple of big ones, but the one that we're going to cover first is it turns out that one of the FBI agents that was working on the Mueller probe was fired from said probe. Turns out he was the one who softened Comey on his language over the Clinton email scandal. So this guy was named Peter Strzok, Strzok, however you want to pronounce that. I'm not exactly sure of the correct pronunciation, but he was the former deputy to the assistant director of counterintelligence at the FBI. It appears that he is the one who changed FBI Director Comey's early draft language about Hillary Clinton's actions regarding her private email server from, quote, grossly negligent to, quote, extremely careless. And that's the difference between it, you can hear the difference between those two terms. One sounds a lot worse than the other.
I think it's Peter Strzok.
Strzok?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
So Strzok there. So he was the one who was pretty much, pushing his hand up against Comey and telling, hey, dude, you need to soften this language. The thing is, the language was being edited. I'm reading from an article from Fox News here. Quote, the language being edited was important because classified material that's been mishandled for, quote, gross negligence calls for criminal consequences, as analysis point out. If it's, quote, extremely careless, which is what it was edited to be, it does not call for criminal consequences. So pretty much he's the one who was telling Comey, you need to change this so that Hillary Clinton doesn't get an indictment soon.
So there's also some other people from the Mueller probe that's been called out, not just Peter there. Another individual, investigator Aaron Zebley, who has been referred to as Mueller's right-hand man. We found out this week that he's a former FBI Director Chief of Staff, and he acted as the attorney for Justin Cooper. Now, if you don't remember who Justin Cooper is, I don't blame you. But Justin Cooper is the IT staffer who installed Clinton's private email server at her home, and he's the one who destroyed her old BlackBerry phones with a hammer. So, something tells me Zebley probably doesn't like Donald Trump so much if he's associating with someone so deeply connected with the Clinton campaign. And, the connections, loose connections pretty much. But they don't end there as well. Nope. Also, another investigator for the Mueller probe, Andrew Wiseman, is a former partner of the global law firm Wilmer Hale, and he attended the Democratic presidential candidate's election party on November 2016.
Yeah, so when you see all those videos of people crying at Clinton headquarters on election night, he was there at the time.
And there's another investigator, Janine Rahi, who is another Wilmer Hale partner, and she represented Ben Rhodes, an ex-Obama National Security Advisor, in a 2015 racketeering case, and Clinton herself in a lawsuit seeking disclosure for private emails. Now, looking at donations, Wiseman donated $2,300 to the Obama campaign in 2008, and at least $2,000 to the DNC in 2006. Rahi donated $5,400 to Clinton in 2015 and 16, and $4,800 to Obama in 2008 and 2016. So what we're seeing is all the people around Mueller are leftists. Mm-hmm. It's pretty apparent. There's Peter Strzok. He was fired. He was the one that was fired for the anti-Trump text, wasn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
But he's not the only one like it around there. So, there's been a lot of talk about how Mueller's losing a lot of legitimacy to his Russia-Trump probe, wherever you want to call it. And you were talking before we did the program on some polling about that to me. It's something like, half?
There was a poll, I forget who did the poll. 48% of Americans believe that the Russia probe, Mueller's Russia probe, is a politically motivated hit job.
Yeah.
And so if you take the number of people who answered, don't know, which is probably going to be about 5-7%.
Yeah.
That's over half of, significantly less than half of Americans actually believe it's a legitimate thing.
You can safely say.
Over half believe, this thing's gone too far. There's no point in this.
So, yeah, as we're finding out more about these people around Mueller, there's more reason to doubt what's going on. But, we've been doubting this from the get-go. We're just starting to see the flowers blossom on this thing. And it's a beautiful mess because they're not going to get anything. There's nothing they have on him.
And even then, the media likes to run cover for these people whenever they do anything wrong. Reuters earlier this week reported that Mueller's team had subpoenaed bank records from Dutch Bank, where Trump did he has a lot of bank records and stuff that go back a long way. So Reuters reported that Mueller had subpoenaed those records. Turns out that was a complete lie. Reuters cited an anonymous and unidentified official. Well, the White House came out and said, this is not true, this has not happened. Then they went out and had to retract the story saying, we hadn't confirmed whether or not this was true. So even then, the media is blatantly lying about what the Mueller probe is actually doing, just trying to make it sound even worse for Trump. Yeah. There has been no subpoenas of any bank records at this moment so far.
So, yeah, there's nothing really to worry about with this Mueller thing. The investigation's going on. Have you seen, the reports about how much it's cost to do this probe?
Several $1 million, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's something like 6 or 7 at this point. So people are starting to wonder, what the hell are you doing here, Mueller? A lot of people want Trump to fire Mueller and Rosenstein. It would look bad, but you need to get these guys out, so I don't know what you can do.
The question is why is it even being let go on at this point?
Yeah, they're not finding anything.
Because it's obvious they're not finding anything. They're trying to find something, whether or not it's even related. They're just trying to, fish for any type of crime at all. Look at, Michael Flynn lying to the FBI and then getting fired. That didn't have really anything to do with the Russia probe necessarily. That had to do with, he did lie to the FBI regarding Russia things. But in terms of
But he was during the transition.
Exactly, that was during transition, so you can't say that was during the campaign.
This
so
wasn't,
even then, he's going in, there's rumors that Mueller's looking at, if this is true regarding bank subpoenas of bank loans and whatnot, there's still probably some truth that he's looking into financial transactions dating back decades with Trump. None of that at all has to do with Russia at all. Let's say you were able to subpoena bank records and you found out that back in 2002, Trump paid someone off to settle a lawsuit regarding some sketchy deal or something that had nothing whatsoever to do with Russia. If Mueller was able to find that, he'd be say, hey, Trump committed a crime, let's impeach him. And that's nothing to do with Russia. So that's why you're absolutely right. It's gone out of control. Most Americans do believe that it's gone out of control. That's a politically motivated hit job. And I'm just not sure why
it's gone on long enough, too.
The question is, at what point does it come to an end?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
And I think it kind of ties to the next thing that we're going to talk about. So, the House this week overwhelmingly voted against impeaching Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And here's my theory on how this stuff goes. I think what the Democrats want to do is they're aiming to get back the House in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
The Mueller probe will go on until they take the House back. They'll introduce articles of impeachment again to, vote on this. And then they want to have Mueller saying his indictments. So then you have enough sway to actually get people to take him out. But it's the long shot. But let's get into the specifics on this impeachment hearing, the vote to impeach. It didn't actually go to the floor, did it?
It did go to the floor.
It did go to the floor.
Yeah, that's why this was such a big deal. So it was the original articles of impeachment were brought up by Democrat Al Green of Texas.
Yes.
He's in the Houston area. So you can wonder why he keeps getting elected.
It was along with Representative Luis Gutierrez and...
who's not running for re-election, by the way.
No, we mentioned that last week. And also, isn't it that Cohen guy? I don't know.
I'm just reading the article here. But what's interesting is like what you're saying. If that's what the Democrats are aiming for, of the people who voted, 364 voted against it. It was actually not really. I stand corrected. They'd never actually voted on it by a floor.
That's something.
They voted on whether or not to move ahead with the resolution.
Yeah.
So pretty much kill it before it gets to the floor.
But people still had to make their voice heard on what they want to do.
364 voted against it. Only 58, all Democrats, voted to move ahead. So there was like 160-something Democrats that actually voted to say, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So if they were going to try to bank on, let's win the House back in 2018, let's do this, and then in articles of impeachment 2019 at some point, only 58 Democrats actually put their name on this and said, you know what, I'm down with this. Enough of them, even people like Nancy Pelosi, voted against it. She's been out there saying we need to, scale back this talk about impeaching Trump. Even I think Dianne Feinstein even came out and was like, yeah, you need to cool it with your impeachment talk. And that's two high-level Democrats out in California. But in terms of the rest of the people, like rank-and-file type Democrats, most of them voted against this thing, saying, we shouldn't be doing this.
Because I think they understand, voting to impeach Trump on this point is a dangerous thing to have on your voting record, especially if you are in a closer district, because, every House district is up for re-election come 2018. It's not something you really want on your record if this is a close district you're in, because you need to sway Trump voters on your side, and that's not going to happen if you're voting to impeach the guy.
Right. And what Nancy Pelosi actually said was she insisted that any impeachment effort should be put on hold until there is evidence of an impeachable offense, which means Mueller coming out and actually saying something.
Yeah.
So she's saying, look, don't even say the word impeachment until Mueller's probe is done, if you even want to do it then. And so, again, I don't want to give advice to Democrats, but if I was a Democrat, I actually like what she said there, because that's what the Democrats should be doing if they're looking to impeach Trump. You're not going to be able to do anything when you don't have control of the House. You're not going to be able to do anything if you're continuing to lose in the Senate. Now, granted, Senate's different than the House when it comes to impeachment. But the one thing I would like to note, however, is that of the Democrats who voted to impeach Trump, the closest district that any of them is in is a D+8.
Yeah.
So none of these people are worried about losing re-election because of their vote, which is, I think, why a lot of them decided to vote against it as well, is because, like you said, that puts a negative stain on your voting record. And if you're in a close district come 2018, knowing that things are shifting to the right, you stand a chance of losing on that alone. So those people are looking out for themselves, and I don't blame them.
Even if your district was like D3 in the 2016 election, it's not good enough. It's too close. So these people, they made a vote based on their own circumstance, and that's how all congressmen vote. But, I think they made the right decision, and this thing got struck down big league, so...
Yeah, and most of the people who actually voted for it, if you look at the list of Democrats, most of them were from the Congressional Black Caucus. Black Democrats made up the majority of the people who actually voted for impeachment. I don't want to bring racial politics into this thing at all, but most white Democrats did not vote to impeach Trump here, or at least vote for to continue debate on articles of impeachment. Maxine Waters voted for it. Al Green voted for it. That chick down in Florida that rock star chick that's got the hat on, she voted for it. The only real prominent white Democrat male that voted for it was, guess who?
In the House of Representatives.
I'll give you a hint. He's in Texas.
Is it Lloyd Doggett?
It's Lloyd Doggett.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
He D+15 district. Unfortunately, we live in it. He was one of the few that voted to continue debate on impeachment articles of Trump. Fortunately, he's not going to worry about losing re-election in this district. I mean, I volunteered for his campaign opponent last year, Susan Narvaez, and I know this district. It's not going to go red anytime soon. It's gerrymandered to be Democrat, unfortunately, but there's not much you can do.
I'm surprised I got that one right. When at first you're just like, name a white male Democrat in the House of Representatives.
That's hard to do alone.
I was just like, I mean, there still is a number, but...
Anyways, well, I guess we should probably move on to something else.
But yeah, so the vote was good stuff for us. Let's go on to what Trump did Saturday night, though. He gave a little speech out there in Pensacola, had a rally. Did you watch this rally, Bobby?
I have not gotten the chance to watch any of it at all, even the highlights.
So I watched the whole rally live, so I guess my thoughts have a little more credence. But he started it out talking about tax reform. Let me give you a little quote from it. Well, you remember the campaign? I said, let's begin by wishing each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas, right? I think no better Christmas present for the American people than giving you a massive tax cut. That's what's happening. So, everyone cheered crazy for that, We're all happy. We're finally getting this done. Hopefully they get this done for us by Christmas. That was the plan. That's what he campaigned on, and looks like that's going to happen. So the crowd was happy. He took some shots at the fake news a bit. For a long period of time, he was going over the different economic numbers, how things have come around since he became president. He talked about how we have, since his election, 2.2 million new jobs in this country, which is not anything to scoff about. He talked about the November jobs numbers, which we're going to talk about later, which are also performing well. One thing he also mentioned at one point that was interesting that I didn't know is that Hispanic unemployment is at an all-time low, historic low, since we've ever been keeping track of this stuff. So, Trump has his obvious Hispanic detractors, but, in a sense, things have never been better for them, as long as you're an American citizen, Hispanic, that is.
Yeah.
Not so much, illegal aliens, but that's another thing. He talked about how GDP is good. He talked about rebuilding the military, which, if you know Pensacola, they have Pensacola Naval Air Station there, which, a lot of people in the town work there.
It's also next to Eglin Air Force Base as well.
Yeah, so that received a real big pop. He did mention Roy Moore. He said that, he asked, who here's from Alabama. There's some cheers, because Pensacola is very close to Alabama.
It's not even an hour drive from the border.
Yeah. So he said, we got to get Roy Moore in. We can't afford to have Doug Jones. He mentioned the thing with the yearbook, which I guess we'll mention later.
We'll get to that later.
One thing I was surprised about is he did mention building the wall. He said we're still doing that, but he did not mention the moving the capital to Jerusalem,
Yeah.
in Israel, which I thought, I was thinking, he's going to save this for the very last thing. In this crowd, it's going to kill. It's going to do amazing to say, we're going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, but he didn't do it. I think he's trying to keep that stuff a little quiet, because it's been a little hot since he made that announcement.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a bunch of Republicans, that area of the Panhandle of Florida is very, very red. So you don't have to worry about, saying something like that and not having to worry about it. Plus, you have so much of you're in the Bible Belt, essentially. So saying something like that's going to get you a bunch of cheers wherever you are. So even I'm surprised to hear you.
So
say
yeah, I'm surprised he didn't say that. If I was his speechwriter, I definitely would have put that in at the end. But let me read out his final closing statement from his speech. Quote, "The greatest adventure still lies ahead. Never give in, never give up, never back down, and never ever stop dreaming. Because we are Americans and the future belongs to us. The future belongs to all of you. So with American pride swelling in our hearts and American courage stirring in our souls, I say these words tonight. Together we will, indeed, make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America safe again. And put it all together, and what do we have? We will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you, everyone." So, good stuff there at the end.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the speech.
Yeah, I liked looking at all the pictures. People had like giant letters spelling out Christmas, and he had like giant signs right in the front that said Merry Christmas. He's really pushing that whole like we're saying Merry Christmas again thing hard, which I mean I love that personally.
Yeah, he did mention that also in the speech. I'm either way on it. It doesn't make a big difference to me. But yeah, it was very Christmas themed at the rally. The rally went over very well. I think he had around 12,000 people in attendance.
Yeah, they said the building seats 12,000, so I would assume that. And they said it was almost max capacity, which I mean that's going to go into the next story we're going to talk about.
So that's good attendance for a speech like this. It was a good thing I went out in Pensacola. It's about an hour long. If you want to listen to it, I recommend it. It's his fourth speech that he's given so far, fourth rally since he's become president.
It's one every couple months.
Yeah, and it's the last one for this year, barring any changes I haven't seen.
I can tell you one thing: if he does have a rally in Texas, we're freaking going to that thing.
I don't even care where in Texas. If they do it in Dallas, I'm going. To Houston, I'm going. El Paso, we'll figure it out. But
El Paso, we'll rent a hotel. We'll go. But to talk about what you're saying about how the thing was max capacity, there's some fake news that was put out over the rally from Dave Weigel of the Washington Post. So he tweeted out a picture of like the I guess I could say the stadium or the arena when it was still filling up before like an hour or so before the rally started. It was only about half full. And he tweeted out essentially saying like, haha, Trump, no one's at your rally, no one cares, you've got low approval ratings, blah, blah, blah. And people like to point out that they were like, hey, look, Trump's in the photo in the bottom corner. Well, it's a blurry photo, and it doesn't even look like him. It just looks like a guy wearing a suit. There's no security around him. It would just be like Trump walking by himself. It's nowhere near the platform he actually walks in on, because he always had those giant platforms he's got. It obviously wasn't Trump, so people are putting out fake news. Trump himself even then retweets the photo of the guy's tweet, a screenshot, and photos of the actual event saying like, blah, 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 you're a liar from the Washington Post, you suck. He actually said, Dave Weigel of the Washington Post put out a phony photo of an empty arena hours before I arrived at the venue, with thousands of people outside and on their way in. Real photos now shown as I spoke. Packed house, many people unable to get in. Demand an apology and retraction from fake news Washington Post. Then Dave Weigel replies saying, sure thing, I apologize. I deleted the photo after, I guess his editor told he had gotten it wrong. I was confused by the image of you walking in the bottom right corner, which, as I said, was not Trump. So even in his quote-unquote apology, he's still using to attack Trump. Trump then replies again, says, Dave Weigel of the Washington Post just admitted that his picture was fake. Fraud, ? Showing an almost empty arena last night for my speech in Pensacola, when in fact, he knew the arena was packed, as was shown on TV. Fake news. He should be fired.
Yeah. You think these people check this, stuff, but they don't. They don't at all.
And if you don't know, Dave Weigel is one of the guys who, essentially only exists and is only alive right now because he tweets shit at Trump every time Trump tweets. And yet he's a reporter from the Washington Post.
It's a good gig.
Yeah, he's, a little left-wing blue check on Twitter, so...
The fake news is not done well this week.
No, there was 4 or 5 major fake news stories. We've already talked about 2 just, in general.
Yeah.
There's a couple we're not even going to get to, but...
Let's, want to go on... So, yeah, the Pensacola stuff was great. Let's go on to the stuff that we have out in Utah, because this stuff is actually stuff I like a lot.
Yeah, so Trump has scaled back the sizes of 2 national monuments out in Utah. Those were Bears Ears National Monument and Staircase Escalante National Monuments, both in Utah. Trump actually went to Salt Lake City to deliver a speech there announcing this intention. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of people on the left who are really angry about the fact that Trump did it, and I kind of want to read out these 5 myths real quick. This is posted in Desert News Opinion by Gary Herbert. It's a good article here. 5 myths.
Desert.
What's that?
Desert News.
Desert News? Oh, did I say desert?
Yeah, Desert is... It was a proposed nation that they tried to do, like a Mormon nation.
Ah. Well,
more you know.
Utah's full of Mormons, so I'm not going to, complain about that. But anyways, back actually less than a year ago, President Obama signed some executive orders that increased the size of the Bears Ears National Monument, when they designated. That original designated created a monument that was 1.35 million acres of federal land, which, when one accounts for all state and private inholdings, actually approaches 1.5 million acres. That's almost the size of the state of Delaware, if you're wondering it. And that's just one national monument. They said what happened was there was a bunch of false narratives and stuff when it happened. So one of the myths is that by reducing the size of the Bears Ears National Monument, the federal lands will be transferred to the state of Utah and or private entities. Well, because of the fact that it was designated on federal lands, they do remain in federal ownership. So it's not like he's just giving land away to private investors.
It just allows them to reallocate what they want to do with it.
Exactly. Number 2, myth. Without national monument status, the vast landscape of the Bears Ears region will be subjected to unchecked exploitation. The fact is that before the December 2016 designation, the region was mostly federal public land subject to a network of federal protections that do conserve the area's natural beauty and archaeological features. Trump's reconfiguration does not change any of that at all. So if you're worried about, by not having it designated as, national monument status, people would come in and start, building things or trashing the place. It's still under federal protection. They're still cleaning it up, all that stuff. Which is the next myth. Without the national monument status, the region will be crisscrossed by coal mines, oil rigs, and gas pipelines. Critical, and the fact is that mineral resources beneath the monument are actually really scarce. There's not really any oil down there or coal or anything, so you don't really have to worry about people drilling or digging out there. There's also no developable oil and gas. Now, there is in Utah, don't get me wrong, but in that specific area around that monument, there's essentially nothing there. It's just desert, giant rocks, and a monument that they've designated. It's in the middle of nowhere pretty much. So you don't got to worry about retail development destroying the natural landscape either. And also they said that one of the final myths here was that it is a boon having national monument status for outdoor recreation. Pretty much the point is, when they designated that as a national monument, they added so much extra land that was federal land in the area that wasn't necessarily needed to be part of the monument itself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just undesignate that part of the land, you focus only on the area of the monument itself and the area in the immediate surroundings for park visitors and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that anymore because most of it's just undeveloped desert. There's no reason for that to be included as part of the national monument. The only reason they did that was just so that they could, not have to worry about stuff later.
And, by changing the decision that they have where this is a national, park designation, it actually allows this to be better accessed by people in general.
Right.
Because it lifts restrictions on motor access. So there's a lot of parts of the national park that no one could even get to.
National monument.
Or national monument. But, now you can because they're changing it. Mm-hmm. But the real part of this that is important to understand is how these monuments currently stand, or prior to what we just did, they're under the control of the National Park Service, which if you understand what the National Park Service is going through right now, it has $12 billion worth of maintenance backlog, which means that's crumbling buildings, roads, bridges that they can't repair or replace right now because they don't have the money for it. So, these monument designations are extremely cost-worthy to the National Park Service. they're better served under different things, like it was, under the Bureau of Land Management or the U.S. Forest Service, like it was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's not overburden our national park system just because we think that it's a good idea to put these areas under, monument designation.
And also, there's one more thing that we are kind of forgetting about, and that's that there are a lot of Native American reservations around there, and those people have been using those areas, as for sites of worship and using those land for centuries. And so by having the federal government be in control and pretty much by designated so much of that land, they're unable to use the land that they've lived in forever. So by scaling back the amount of land, they're actually being able to be using that land now. So that's good for them, too.
Yeah. So this is really good stuff. And if you understand, the federal government's control of lands just in the West in general, it's excessive. It's way more than it needs to be.
Yeah. You look at a map of states like Nevada and Utah in terms of how much land is federal land, it almost looks entirely blacked out.
Almost entirely. So we're talking about an area of land that's the size of a state, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just not smart. Okay, you think the government manages things well? They don't take care of these lands well when they have a backlog of $12 billion. So I know it sounds great to put these things under designation. It sounds like you're protecting it. Actually, you're leaving these places in disuse, and it's not useful. I don't know.
No, it's not. But when Trump gave his speech in Salt Lake City at the very end of it, the crowd started chanting 4 more years, 4 more years. So, Trump didn't do as well in Utah as people thought because Evan McMullen out there got like 20% of the vote, which is why Trump's margins out in Utah were very, very low, even though normally Republicans win in Utah by like 25% margin. If you have enough people out there who are like, you know what, Trump's actually doing a good job. Again, that's less dissenting Republican votes in 2020. Too.
Yeah, I don't think Evan McMullen will be causing as much problems in 2020, but I can't put it against anti-Trump not to do that either. So, who knows?
I'm just interested to see where anti-Trump actually is 4 years from now, because they're already like half as powerful as they were last year. They're dying fast.
They're pretty shell-shocked. Let's go on to some of this Planned Parenthood stuff you have for us.
So the Department of Justice announced that they are actually investigating Planned Parenthood over the sale of fetal tissue. So remember last year or the year before when all those videos came out that were secretly recorded of Planned Parenthood executives saying that they have been selling fetal tissue from aborted fetuses on different markets and whatnot? You remember that?
Yeah.
So the FBI last month requested that unredacted documents from, I believe it was the House Judiciary Committee, came out and said that. Or I'm sorry, the House Judiciary Committee. So the FBI requested documents from them regarding this issue, and now the Department of Justice says that, you know what, we actually are investigating this matter. Nothing really has come out since that announcement that they said, so I can't really say too much more other than the fact that
It started.
It has started, and I'm okay with it because I don't really think that they should be selling fetal tissue. That's just me. I know you're more pro-abortion than I am, but even I think you would agree that what Planned Parenthood was doing with that was really, really sketchy.
Yeah. I don't think they just have the authority to sell the body parts of the things they cut up.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see, the federal government come in there and figure out what the hell was going on. Want to go into this last thing we have for the top?
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly mention this last story before we move on to economics. So there is a rumor, and now it's more so than a rumor. It's actually pretty true.
They're working on it.
The Trump administration is thinking about moving federal government offices out of Washington, D.C. Now, that's not saying, move them to, Utah or whatever, but, get more of them out of D.C. into, Virginia or Maryland and the surrounding areas there. There's a lot of different reasons that they're thinking about that. But here, I'll just say this one thing that people forget. Washington, D.C. has 1 million residents, but it has 3 million people that work there. Every day, 2 million people drive into that city. They all have to find places to park, or they have to use subway trains or whatnot. They all got to go to their jobs. The city gets packed. It's gridlocked. It's a tiny, the district is tiny. And most of that stuff is located, near Capitol Hill and all that. Whereas everything north of essentially the White House is like just embassies and houses for people that live there. So that's why that area is so congested and crowded. By moving some federal government offices out of that area, you do help alleviate some of the congestion that's in the D.C. area. Plus, it's part of draining the swamp as well. When everything's concentrated in one area, nothing goes well. Obviously, there's other reasons to this as well, but I just wanted to mention those first.
So, in particular, what we're talking about is Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke is trying to move the headquarters for the Bureau of Land Management, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Bureau of Reclamation out of Washington, D.C. to Montana, since over 99% of the nearly 250 million acres that the Bureau of Land Management has is west of the Mississippi, which is related to the thing we were just talking about with Utah. It would be easier to manage those things if you're out there. But, because this is something that's not even like a partisan thing. This is something that people have talked about for like a long time.
Yeah.
The idea is like, there's a lot of places across the country that could use like an economic boost. So say you take whatever...
Billings, Montana.
Yeah, so say you take whatever bureau in Washington, D.C., and you give it to some place in the middle of nowhere in the United States. That place just had an influx of jobs. A lot of people just had to move out there. They're buying houses. It's an income boost. Washington, D.C. doesn't really need it. And the thing is, like, the people in Washington, D.C. have so much power, and they're in such a bubble there, they forget to really understand the country outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So the idea is you get these people just away from them in general, so they can't be like talking and lobbying with them constantly every single day. I mean, I like the idea in principle. It would cost a lot to move everyone out for these different bureaus, so that might not be so great. But, I mean, in general, like, I'd like to see this happen. I think it would be an interesting thing.
If I had to put my money on it, I'd say I bet none of that actually happens.
I don't think this will happen, but the people are working on it.
It's the thought that counts, right?
But it's just kind of, we're trying to drain the swamp. This will lessen the swamp's power if we got these bureaus out of Washington, D.C. But you have anything else on that, or should we talk about some job numbers?
I think let's do it.
Okay, so the only thing we have for the economy this week is we got the job numbers, and they are above the estimation for November. So the estimate we had was going to be 200,000 jobs created. These are non-farm jobs. And added to the payroll, we have seen 228,000
there you go.
non-farm payroll jobs added this year. The unemployment rate is still staying at 4.1%, which is good. But we've outperformed another month again in the Trump administration as far as job creation. And as I said before during that rally, Trump mentioned since he's been elected, 2.2 million jobs have come back into the country. So he is the jobs president. He's doing well. These are good numbers, and it's stuff we like to see.
And also I think there's one more thing that is worth mentioning out of the numbers, and that's the fact that the economy is doing so well, the Fed is going to meet this week to discuss raising interest rates. So it's possible that this week they're going to have that December decision that we've heard them talking about for the last several months. They probably will be hiking interest rates this week. So just keep that in mind.
So we've talked about it on the show for a long time. The plan was to do 3 interest rate hikes this year, which if you don't know what that means, it's kind of like a vote of confidence in the economy. They didn't do it once at all under Obama because they didn't think the economy could handle, increasing their interest rate. But we've done it once so far this year. So they held off doing it again because of the hurricanes, but as we found out, the country has rebounded pretty strong from the hurricanes, and the GDP wasn't as down nearly as much as they thought the hurricanes would really cause it to be. So
it was still above 3%.
Yeah, still above 3%. Really good stuff. So it's likely we'll see another one before the end of the year. We could not, but who knows?
In terms of the rate hike?
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident they're going to do it this week.
This week.
Because they were always aiming for that last one to be in December. even back in like June when we were talking about it, they were saying like one in September, one in December if they did it. The September one's the one that got pushed off, but the December one's always been on the table here. So again, vote of confidence, things are going great. I fully expect that they will be hiking interest rates. So next week on the show, we'll probably be talking about the fact that they've done it.
Yeah, and that'll be some good news. And with that, let's just get into some immigration stuff.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
So we got a lot of good stuff, I think, to talk about, but the first one is something that we've been fighting in the courts for months now, and that is the travel ban. But the Supreme Court is allowing the full implementation of the travel ban now.
Full implementation.
Full implementation.
No coming out and saying, well, you have to allow grandparents as well, or you have to allow aunts and uncles. Full implementation. Excuse me.
The result went exactly how we thought it was going to go.
Yeah. Now, the only difference is, unlike the first time when they allowed the thing to go into court and then they kind of had to change it a little bit, which was not full implementation, that was an 8-0 decision. This one, 6-2. Gorsuch himself still, was like, I'm kind of, I'm pleading the fifth on this one. But still, 6-2. The only ones who voted against it were, I believe, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor.
Those were going to be my guesses.
Yeah.
So.
But the 6 countries that this applies to is Syria, Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. So none of those places are countries that I want people to be coming here from, personally. But the lower courts were the ones who had said that people needed a quote-unquote bona fide relationship with someone in the U.S. in order to be let in. That's not exactly how Trump's executive order did it. But since the Supreme Court is allowing full implementation, that bona fide relationship thing doesn't even matter anymore. Because we're getting full implementation at this point. The only thing the courts did say was that grandparents and cousins could not be excluded. So I guess I kind of mistaked what I said there. But it removes the bona fide thing and just says, okay, just grandparents and cousins. All right.
What we're talking about with these specifics is just like there's different allotments with chain migration, and like with a lot of chain migration, it's been so frivolous in the past. Mm-hmm. Like if I was your uncle, I can get in under your sponsorship because you have a green card. If I'm an adult child of yours, I can get in on your green card. We're trying to curtail that stuff because not everyone needs to be here. Mm-hmm. But this is really good stuff, and it sets a good precedent because it showed that Trump was correct in what he wanted to do from the beginning, and it means we can do more of this stuff in the future. And no one's gonna stop our ability to do more of these. It's great that we have this tool. If there's any new countries that are acting up, throw a ban on them. Mm-hmm. They'll get in, they'll get in line.
Now, keep in mind, this was not the travel ban the extended one that included Venezuela and North Korea.
No.
It's not this one. This was the other one, the first one.
Yeah,
so,
in terms of countries.
Yeah. But, as you said, precedent stands, so we shouldn't have any problem with the other countries as well. Like you said, we can just add any more that we want. So, good stuff.
So going off of the stuff that we have out of the travel ban, let's go on to some DACA stuff. So because the first thing I have to talk about is related to chain migration. Now, this week, Jessica Vaughn, the Director for Policy Studies for the Center for Illegal Immigration Studies, said that if Congress was to pass an amnesty for the DACA kids, the 700,000 that, probably aren't going to be renewed, but could be renewed. If we were to give these people an amnesty, in chain migration coming off them, you would see an additional 2 million immigrants coming into the United States, being sponsored off the green card that we give to the DACA kids.
It's insane.
And, knowing how chain migration works, all 2 million of those people would be eligible for welfare when they come to this country, which is something, people don't want to think about, how legal immigration is the problem. In my retrospect, in a lot of ways, it's worse than illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is a problem too. But if you look at welfare usage amongst legal immigrants compared to the native population, legal immigrants use it something like 6 in 10, where the native population only uses it 3 in 10. So why should people that have never paid into the system receive from the system. It doesn't make sense. And they also have a study out of the same institute that backs up this with American taxpayers could save up to $1.9 trillion in the next decade if we cut chain migration. 1.9 trillion.
That's enough to cover, several years worth of deficits.
Yeah. This is why this is the number one priority, because if you fix this system, it will pay for everything else. People don't realize they're being ripped off, the tune of trillions of dollars by chain migration. But we are. And the people in power don't want you to realize this because it's going to make you mad. And you should be mad. But
what they say here, for every 2 immigrants that are admitted, 7 more additional ones are admitted via chain migration?
On average, yes.
That's unsustainable.
No. And no country, functions in the same way as we do. It's insane. And that's why we need to switch over to a merit-based system, because we can't afford this. We can't. $1.9 trillion. Okay, they talk about the wall as this huge waste of money because it would be $20 billion. It's a joke when we look at the real cost of immigration. I'm not even saying illegal immigration. I'm talking about legal immigration. So, some really, really crazy stuff. We also got some polling numbers on how the public perceives a DACA amnesty, which is something extremely important coming into these primaries in 2018. Just 27% of American voters support a government shutdown for a DACA amnesty, while twice as many, 55%, oppose a government shutdown. For that reason, 17% are undecided. So heading into, this gray period, we don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to shut down the government? I hope they do. It would be great. It would be great for us if they do this.
Well, the problem why I don't think that's going to happen is because the Congress signed a not a full spending bill, but a temporary spending bill that it funds the government through, I believe, the 22nd of December.
Yeah,
or the
I know they have like a
December.
continuing resolution, and
so
they can still shut it down this month if they wanted
so they
to.
Theoretically could, but only 27% of Americans agree. They even have this thing broken down by different segments. Only 35% of Democrats want this to happen. Only 31% of people who say that they strongly disapprove of Donald Trump want to happen. And that's going to be your lefties of the left. Only less than 1/3 of extreme liberals want the government to shut down just to force a vote.
So people don't want a government shutdown for DACA. It's probably not going to happen if they know anything good for themselves. But hey, please do it. I mean, I want it to happen. I want the government, because the government shutdown, it's not what everyone perceives it to be. It's something like only 12% of the government
I've heard.
shuts down when you have a government shutdown.
It's just like non-essential stuff.
But if you are, if you have to feel the effects of a government shutdown because of non-citizens who aren't supposed to be here, people are going to lose the sympathy for those individuals who aren't supposed to be here.
Yeah,
So-
when you're a person who's like unable to go to work and unable to get paid because Democrats are trying to prioritize DACAs over you, you're not going to be too happy about them. That being said, no matter what happens, if there is a government shutdown, it's going to be blamed on Republicans.
It shouldn't be, though.
It shouldn't be, but it will be, and it will be.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the narrative on that. But let's go into the last thing with DACA. So the last thing that we have about DACA this week is a company has said that they're going to continue employing their DACA recipient employees even after their work permits expire. And that company is Airbnb.
Aha. Well, that's not good. Looks like they need to be hit with some immigration lawsuits there.
Yeah.
What's the word? I think you can get in trouble for aiding and abetting a terrorist.
Aiding and
well,
abetting.
you can aid and abet illegals too, and that's something that is a law that you're not allowed to aid and abet illegal immigrants. At that point, if they actually do it, now granted, the people's work permits haven't actually run out yet, so it's we'll see whether or not they actually do it. But the fact that they're even talking about it, looks like you can hit Airbnb with some pretty big lawsuits from the Department of Justice if they decide to do this. And frankly, I hope they do it. Because I think that if they decide to do this, go after them with the DOJ, saying, look, you're aiding and abetting illegal immigrants in this country, hit them with a ton of lawsuits that, if it goes through the courts, we're going to win those things as long as it's not the Ninth Circuit. Or at least if it goes to the Supreme Court, we win that case. And at that point, you use them as an example for every other company to say, look, you want to continue to harbor illegals? You're going down.
So what happened was The Guardian emailed 19 different major tech corporations in Silicon Valley to see if they would continue to employ Dreamers if, their work permits expired. And the only one to respond, some didn't respond at all. Mm-hmm. Some said, yes, we'll stop, employing them. But the only person that said no was Airbnb spokesman Nick Pappas, who replied, no, we're 100% committed to protecting Dreamers. So, it is a crime to knowingly employ illegal aliens. So, I don't know how they're going to try and fight this, but yeah, they'll get sued real quick.
And that's what I said. I hope they do.
It will be great.
They actually have a list of the companies that were emailed. So, Google declined to respond. Companies that either ignored the queries or declined to answer questions about its streaming workforce included Apple, Twitter, Uber, Lyft, Salesforce, Netflix, eBay, Box, Intel, Oracle, Cisco, LinkedIn, HP, and IBM. So all of them either didn't answer or said, yes, we will comply with federal law. It's unknown which ones did not. They said
it would be helpful to know.
They said Amazon did not respond to specific questions, but a spokesperson pointed to a declaration that the company did submit a lawsuit challenging Trump's decision, saying that the company will suffer injury if they lose status and are deported. So that's kind of a yes and no at the same time for Amazon. I really don't think Amazon's going to suffer if you deport probably not even 10,000 people that probably work for them at most. We're talking about not even 700,000 DACA people here. Okay, how many of them are employed at Amazon? Do you think, Enzo? Probably not that many.
Probably a handful.
Maybe a couple thousand at most.
Oh, that'd be pushing it.
That's pushing it at most. Amazon's not going to suffer any serious injury to their company if those people are deported, because there's a lot of people that would love to work for Amazon.
No, but it's about signaling.
Exactly.
So we'll see what comes of that. Let's go into some ICE numbers. We got some super good ICE numbers.
I haven't read these, so I'm waiting to hear these.
They are very good. And I get these numbers out of Vice. So they talk about how they're bad numbers. But they're only good numbers in my eyes. Mm-hmm. So the Department of Homeland Security announced that illegal border crossings have hit a 45-year low, and that arrests by immigration agents are up 25% compared to last year. Deportations were down 6% overall, but interior removals, cases involving people who were not caught at the border, skyrocketed by 37% since Trump's inauguration.
That's the important
January.
number.
Also, some other interesting things we learned from these numbers released, that 90% of the illegal aliens who were arrested in the fiscal year of 2017 had some type of criminal conviction pending or are facing criminal charges. Also, there are numbers on MS-13 arrestees. Arrestees of MS-13 gang members is up in fiscal year 2017, 83%. Nice. So, yeah, Vice doesn't really like it, but really good stuff.
And that's what I was saying, is that one number is more important, the whole interior removals, because that's what we mean when we refer to deportations, because if someone's caught at the border and sent back, that counts as deportation.
That technically does.
But you have less people coming across the border, so the amount of people getting caught at the border is lower, which makes those quote-unquote deportation numbers look down. But the actual deportations, people that are already in the country, that is significantly higher. What did they say, 37% up?
37% increase in interior removals.
And that's where it really matters. Yeah. Because, we've talked about how illegal border crossings are at a 45-year low. It is starting to see a little bit of an upswing again.
Still down.
It's still significantly down from the Obama years, but it is starting to go up just a little bit, and that is concerning. But keep that in mind going forward. But yeah, these are really good numbers. I'm glad that we have them on here.
The article, goes on to bitch about how Trump's actually with his interior removals, because that's the scary thing. He's not going after the criminals. He's going after soft targets. He's hitting them anywhere. But hey, if you're an illegal alien, I just want you out. I don't really care what you're up to.
I like this.
I want you to think like, oh man, it could be me next, because I just want you to go back. Okay, I don't care if you're a criminal or not. I don't care if you're a rapist or not. Now, 90% of the people that we have arrested, as I have said, are facing criminal charges or have a criminal record. So, yeah, there are a lot of bad hombres, and we're getting you. But
I like this one quote here. It says, and this is from the article, "The result of that policy is ICE agents rounding up longtime U.S. residents, including the parents of citizens. These arrests have often grabbed headlines because they occur at or near, quote, the following: hospitals, courtrooms, churches, and other public places."
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I want you to be afraid there, too.
When you go to the hospital and you stub your toe, I want you to worry about, am I going to get deported if I go to the hospital? Or am I going to get deported if I show up to this court hearing? Am I going to get deported when I'm leaving church?
Because you're not supposed to be here, okay?
Exactly.
They say long-term American residents. They weren't a resident for a goddamn day.
And they said parents of citizens. It sounds like they had some anchor babies. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Oh, too bad. You still go back.
Well, send your kids back, too. It's the only fair thing. I agree with the left a little bit. I don't want to break up families. I just want to send the families back with them.
Yeah.
I'm a nice person.
I don't think we can retroactively suspend citizenship. I mean, I want to get rid of birthright citizenship too, but I mean, one step at a
fuck
time.
it. Who cares? Just do it.
Yeah. But let's go into some more stuff out of ICE. Thomas Homan, the acting ICE chief, who has been part of ICE.
Guy.
He's been a great guy so far. He has been a part of ICE for 34 years now. And, he was talking to Fox and Friends, and he said that as far as pushback on this president, let me tell you something. Under this president has done more for border security and public safety than any of the 6 presidents I've worked for. So, in the last 6 presidents, that goes back quite a ways. What is that? Barack Obama,
well, I guess we can,
George Bush.
We could probably include Trump as well.
Is Trump included in that?
Well, he says any of the past 6 presidents. I guess, yeah. Any of the 6 presidents.
So that doesn't include Trump.
I guess not. So what do we got?
That's George Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton,
George H.W.
George
Bush,
H.W.,
Ronald Reagan,
and
Jimmy Carter.
And Trump's better than all of them.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you have any doubt if Trump is doing good on this stuff, take it from the guy who's been in the force for 34 years. He's doing a good job. I feel like I'm indulging in the winning sometimes. Like, it is the meme, like, oh, you're never gonna get tired of winning. But all we do is win under Trump, it seems sometimes. And immigration, it's winning all the time.
Hey, even a triple overtime 1-point win is still a victory.
We're winning on the economy. We're winning with immigration. It sounds like I'm quoting a Trump speech, but I'm just quoting the truth right now. So it's good stuff.
And the last thing I wanted to say here, for what Homan was saying, back in June, he was talking to Newsweek, and he said, referring to sanctuary cities, sanctuary jurisdictions pose a threat to the American public by refusing to work with ICE and allowing egregious criminal offenders back into the community to put the lives of the public at risk. Imagine if we were able to go after sanctuary cities more, that 37% number we were talking about.
That's where most of them are.
If you had sanctuary cities like starting to agree, or less sanctuary cities,
the police had to cooperate, and we could get detainers, on these people.
Those
we could
numbers
actually
would be
get them out.
Higher.
Yeah,
I saw a meme that's been pushed around that said that back when John F. Kennedy was president, he sent in federal troops in order to integrate schools in Alabama.
Yeah,
Trump should send in federal troops to sanctuary cities to start rounding up deportations and get people that are breaking immigration law.
I wouldn't be mad if it happened.
Imagine if you see some tanks and Humvees rolling down the streets of San Francisco and 30 or 40 armed U.S. soldiers and Marines get out and they walk up to the city hall of San Francisco and say, "This is now under federal jurisdiction. You people can all go home now. We running the show."
Well,
I would love that.
If only we had, SB4 here in Texas. I mean, we'd already have our bases covered on our sanctuary cities, but we can't have nice things, so.
And I saw a bumper sticker yesterday. I think I told you all this. I saw a bumper sticker in a car. This was like a Toyota Prius looking car, so it's probably some shitlib driving it.
Yeah.
It was a shape of Texas, outlined in red, with like the no symbol kind of line through it, over the word SB4. And next to it said, "No place for hate in the Lone Star State." I was like,
so stupid. Like the person, and I was telling you this when you told me about this. Like the person, essentially, doesn't want Texas to be Texas anymore.
It was a white woman too, just like,
yeah. Like if you support illegal immigration, you pretty much just say, "Oh, I don't want a border." The borders of Texas is what gives Texas its shape.
Mm-hmm.
If you blur these things away, we're not Texas anymore. We're not anything you know it to be. But she has no problem having the shape of Texas on her car that has the borders on it. Just, don't deport people that aren't supposed to be here because that's hateful. I don't fucking care.
I don't know. Let's go on.
Let's go on.
Some more good numbers.
The crazy people in this state.
Yeah.
Some good numbers.
Guarantee you she lives in Austin and comes to school here.
Yeah.
Guarantee you that.
Yeah. So, more good numbers. U.S. refugee admittance is down 83%. Now, I believe this was for fiscal year 2018.
So far,
So
fiscal
far
year.
for
So
fiscal
that's
year 18.
just October and November.
And this is
Compared to the same period last year.
to the same period of fiscal year 2017. We've just recently entered, the new fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's down 83% comparatively to the same period last year. A total of only 3,108 refugees have been admitted in October and November of this year, which is down from 18,300 from the same time period last year. So, really dramatic stuff. Trump, he didn't say he was going to completely get rid of, refugee admittance, but he said he was going to get it down at least half, I remember, during the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing more than that.
And also, comparing, you want to compare where we let these people in. We're not really letting these people in from, like, Somalia and places like that. They said the largest numbers came from Bhutan, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Burma, Ukraine, and Eritrea. So, we're mostly African countries is what we're referring to. Not only that, the religious breakdown from last year was something like 75% plus was Muslim, and less than like 2 or 3% was Christian refugees being let in. So far, of the roughly 3,100 refugees that have been let in this fiscal year, 59.6% Christian, only 15% Muslim. So if you're worried about the Muslim factor specifically of refugees coming in, disproportionately, these refugees we're letting in are not Muslim.
Yeah.
They're Christian Africans, which, I mean, I don't want to let them in either, but still.
Take it for what it's worth, I guess. But yeah, the refugee stuff, also extremely good. Let's go on to the next thing that we have for immigration, and that is the wall prototypes. So we've begun testing the wall prototypes. I was seeing some photos today. They're testing specifically today the climbing portion of the wall prototypes. Mm-hmm. So this is going to go on for the next couple weeks. I think like a month they allotted for the time period to test this all. But they're going to be taking jackhammers. They're going to be taking hydraulic drills to these things. They're going to try and dig under these things because all these walls go 6 feet under. They're going to try climbing over these things. They're going to put it through the ringer. And, in a month's time, we're going to figure out which walls work best.
So for all of you conservatives out there saying, where's the wall? Why hasn't the wall been built? We have these things called schedules, okay?
Yeah.
We built the prototypes. We test them for a month, make sure they work. Then you move on to greater construction plans. So next time Ann Coulter out there tweeting, send her a link to this video and tell her to listen to Trump Republic Radio. Because that's the only way that you're going to change these fuckers' minds. Just saying.
Let's go to the last thing we have for immigration, and not good stuff.
Yeah, this is
but
some bad news here.
Some bad news, but when you have so many good news, I mean, you got to throw in some bad news too.
And the bad news is, apparently, we now have found out that the Obama administration has a 550,000 illegal immigrants in their backlog. Those are people that were blocked from being deported under the Obama administration. 550,000 blocked deportations.
Which is just mass negligence.
Most of them were let off the hook by judges placed in there by the Obama administration as well. And obviously most of these come from, like, you know, California and places like that. But 550,000, that's the same size as the population of Atlanta, Georgia.
That's significant.
That many people in the country, illegal immigrants, not just living here, but were supposed to be deported, but their deportations were blocked by Obama judges. Think about that.
People we don't need whatsoever.
And those people are still on our list, though. It's not like they were removed from the list. So that's 550 people that now that we know about this, we can prioritize them. Because they're the ones who were supposed to be out years ago.
Yeah.
But were let stay here. So, yeah, ICE Acting Director Thomas Homan said, quote, "We need to hold liberal judges accountable." And then he went on to say, "There has to be a consequence and a deterrence to illegal activity, or the illegal activity won't stop. We've made a lot of headway this year, more than I've seen in a long time, and we've got to keep going down this road. We've got to keep momentum going. There's only one way you're going to be able to deal with those judges that are in those courts, and that's you show up at their door with the military and say, go home. I'm serious. I'm serious about this. I'm serious. You need to send in the feds to remove these freaking judges from power. I'm literally saying get rid of half the judicial branch of the country because it's overstepped its bounds and it's killing this country."
Well, if we had SC4 in here in Texas, you could do that.
Exactly.
You could put them in jail for, advocating.
And you know what blocked SB4? Liberal justice.
A liberal judge.
Exactly. So
appointed by Obama, no less. It's funny how these things work.
If anything, you need to make it so that judges and justices do not serve life terms. That is insanely crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that for sure needs to change, at least for federal judges. Because most local and state courthouse judges, those people are elected. So in terms of people that are just placed there by Congress and whatnot, that needs to change. That cannot survive this country if it continues to be lifelong terms. Just saying. Anyways, I'm done ranting.
Yeah. Let's go on to some 2018 elections news. So the first thing we want to talk about is John Conyers has resigned.
Yep. And unlike Al Franken, he actually resigned. He's out of there. He's gone. It's an open seat.
He was in the hospital or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was one of his excuses he was using earlier, but he went out and just had a press conference and said it, that he was going to resign. He's 88 years old. He said it in a phone interview he actually said it in a phone interview to a local radio station in the Detroit area from the Detroit hospital he was staying at because of his chest pains. That's where he announced his resignation. He was the longest serving congressman in Congress. So, yeah, remember at the beginning when they had allegations or not even allegations, but the fact that he paid off those people using that fund, pretty much that congressional slush fund that's used to pay off sexual assault allegations. Nancy Pelosi at the beginning came out and said she stood by him. She called him a hero. Then changed her mind, said, he should resign, at which point he then entered the hospital, said he had chest pains, and then a couple days later finally announced his resignation. Problem is, now he says he is endorsing his son, John Conyers III, to run for his seat.
Which, might work. Who knows?
Well, that's like a D plus 30-something district, so
it'll go to the Democrat.
If you're thinking a Republican's going to be able to replace anyone, that's just not going to happen. But what that does is it puts a little bit more light on that race for 2018, because in the House, you can't just put someone in there to replace someone. The seat stays open until the next election cycle, which is 2018. So I guess what we can say is there's one less Democrat in the House until January of 2019 once everyone gets sworn in. So that's some good news, I guess.
He got drained.
Yeah, Swamp did get drained a little bit. His son's 27 years old, by the way. But the funny thing is, I want to say this about his son. In 2010, The congressman had to reimburse the Treasury Department for $5,600 for his son's misuse of taxpayer-funded Cadillac Escalade.
Jesus Christ.
Conyers' wife, in 2010, was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for taking cash as a Detroit City Council member to support a Houston company's sludge contract with the city. So you got an entire family there that's kind of got some history of misusing taxpayer money.
Not good stuff.
Not good stuff is right. So, just thought everyone should need to know that.
Let's go into some bad news for the 2018 elections. This is something I referenced earlier, casualties on our side with the Me Too stuff. And that is Arizona Republican Representative Trent Franks is resigning due to kind of strange circumstances. Do you know how this case works, Bobby?
I have actually not heard hardly any of this stuff at all, so let me know.
So this guy is having like issues conceiving with his wife.
Okay.
So he asked around some like women he works with, I believe, that he knows well enough to be a surrogate.
Okay.
And he is resigning in advance. He's not like charged with anything because like it's perceived sexual harassment or something. Like I don't think he should be doing this, but he is, and it's kind of terrible because if you look up Trent Franks on Numbers USA, that's they're the ones that do the grades on how people vote immigration wise. Trent Franks has an A on Numbers USA. Yeah. So this is a guy we need to stay there. So, he's going to be resigning on January 31st. He can still change his mind. He doesn't need to do this.
I hope he doesn't.
I hope he doesn't. I hope someone reaches out to him and convinces him not to do this because, as we've seen with Trump and more, you need to stand through these things, take the arrows that are thrown at you, because in the end, you come out stronger because of it. So, yeah, I hope the Frank situation goes well. But, yeah, I don't want to be losing this guy. He's a good guy.
It's only one thing I would say. He's in Arizona's 8th district, R+13. So if he does resign, it will stay red as a district. And I think from now on, whenever we do mention these things, it is important to point out whether districts are going to be competitive or not.
Yeah.
But, at least...
Not to say, the way this guy votes...
He's got a 92 Trump score according to 538, and a 92 Conservative Review Liberty score. So he's like a really good guy.
He was an early endorser of Trump.
Yeah.
So he's not a guy I want to turn my back on. But let's get into the Roy Moore stuff for this week. We don't have too much new stuff. We have the yearbook thing.
Yes.
So Gloria Allred, or the lady she's representing, what is
Beverly Nelson? Beverly Nelson.
Beverly Nelson.
She's a yearbook lady.
Yearbook lady. She has admitted that she added to the yearbook.
Yes, so if you remember back that picture of the yearbook signature, picture it in your brain right now. After it said Roy Moore, DA, all that stuff that was under it, talking about the date and the location, she now came out and admitted that she wrote that herself. Which that's the entire point of when she came out and fucking showed the yearbook itself, was saying, look here's evidence that I knew him and whatnot. And that's like, oh, by the way, 99% of the evidence I showed you, I made up myself.
But still believe me.
Yeah. And this is what people came out and the left used this to attack him. And it's fake. It's completely fake. She admitted to ABC News that she wrote it during an interview. Like,
these people are insane.
I don't...
So, yeah, what
really needs to happen here is there needs to be some serious talk about libel and slander laws being issued on these people that are proven false in sexual assault allegations.
Yeah, it is libel.
This thing almost derailed his candidacy.
Yeah.
For a senator for the next 6 years. Okay? She's proven a liar, and we knew she was lying the entire time, but now it's proven that she's been lying. Okay, once Roy Moore gets into office, he needs to focus all of his non-senatorial obligation free time towards attacking this woman in the courts and getting her on everything he possibly can, because she is a terrible person. And Gloria Allred as well, because, she's always the one who's representing all these accusers and stuff. She's got to go. She has got to go.
Yeah. So we got some polling that we can get into on the Roy Moore stuff. I'll go into the first one.
Go ahead.
On people, if they believe the sexual allegations against him. So this is a CBS News YouGov poll that was conducted from November 28th to December 1st. 71% of likely voters stated that they found the allegations against Moore to be false. 92% of Republicans who don't believe the allegations blame Democrats for the charges, and 88% cited media as a driving force behind the allegations. So what does that all say? People aren't buying it. And especially the people that we need voting for him, they don't buy it whatsoever.
Now, you remember when they had older polls that showed the thing like tied and whatnot?
Yeah.
It had Trump's approval in the state at like 47%.
So they're pulling this
This
terribly.
poll has Trump's approval in Alabama at 57%, which
is realistic.
A little bit lower than what I'd expect, but realistic. So I do tend to believe these numbers here when they're talking about it.
The poll also reveals that only 9% of Republican voters said that they would cast their ballot for Jones, and we've been talking on the show, if Jones has a chance of winning, he needs something like a third of Republicans to flip to him.
Mm-hmm.
So if only 9% are willing to do that, you don't meet the mark.
That's nothing.
And I've also, because I listen to different shows and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
there's another poll that I heard that they need for Doug Jones to have a chance. He needs to have 95% of the black vote that Obama received in 2012 with a similar turnout.
Right.
So that's not happening.
You're not going to have similar turnout to that.
It's hey, if you wanna bet on something and make money pretty definitely, vote on this election or put money on this election.
I put some money on this election on Predict It back when Roy Moore started to tank down when he was about 60 cents on Predict It.
Yeah.
I didn't put too much money. I only put $10, but if I can turn $10 into 15, hell, I'll go for it.
Yeah.
So Tuesday I should be getting a payout.
I don't think the stock numbers would be as good to buy in it now.
As of right now, I think the last time I checked, which was not for a couple days, Roy Moore is at 85 or something percent on Predict It, which is
Definite.
I got it when he was around 60, and he actually, for a time, dipped into the 40s. I should have bought then, but...
Yeah, would have been a good buy. But yeah, unless you're a complete political novice, Roy Moore's winning on Tuesday. We'll have some good stuff to talk about next Sunday on that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to mention the other poll we have on it? Or?
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention it. So there is one new poll that was out this week, just like the other one that we just mentioned. I believe this one was done by, this was done by the Change Research Center in Alabama. It's got Roy Moore up by 7 points. So, most of the polls we've seen now have him up about 5 to 7 points. So I'm still predicting maybe a 7 to 10 point win myself. On Tuesday, so make sure you're paying attention Tuesday night because all this comes to an end. That's all I want to mention about that poll.
Yeah. So going to the last thing that we have for the 2018 elections segment is Democrat representative of the 20th District of Florida, Al C. Hastings, has been caught up in a new sex scandal. So... right back to Me Tooism, it's really not affecting Republicans at all the way they thought it would be. Another Democrat is going down. So, apparently what they found is the Treasury paid $220,000 to settle sexual misconduct claims made by Wissam Packer, a former staff member of a congressional commission who claims to, in previously undisclosed documents, that Hastings touched her, made unwanted sexual advances, and threatened her job. So, if you look at the past of this Alcee Hastings, I was just looking on Wikipedia where you can find about this guy. In 1981, during this guy, Alcee Hastings' judicial career, Hastings was charged with accepting a $150,000 bribe in exchange for a lenient sentence and a return of seized assets for 21 counts of racketeering by Frank and Thomas Romano. And you go on to 1988. The Democratic-controlled U.S. House of Representatives took up Hastings' case, and Hastings was impeached for bribery and perjury by a vote of 413 to 3.
Jesus.
But
And yet somehow he gets elected to Congress, and he's been in the United States House of Representatives since 1993. Probably because he's in a fucking D+31 district. That's why.
So yeah, the Democrats are getting back this seat. Nothing's really gonna change, but hey, it's funny. This is the kind of guys they send to Washington.
Not sending their best.
Not sending their best.
The rapists? No.
They accept bribes.
They're accepting bribes.
They make women feel unwelcomed.
They touch women.
It's good stuff.
And they resign. Anyways, so
yeah, more Democrats are resigning. It's good stuff. Let's get on to the bottom of the stack for the national news.
All right, so I'll cover this first story here. So, unless you want to say something first.
Oh, no, I just want to say I like this stuff.
I think this is great, too. So this has everything to do with what we were just talking about, with people being accused of sexual misconduct. Time Magazine has announced their 2017 Person of the Year, and it is, drumroll please, the Silence Breakers.
They did it again where, like, they do, like, not one person, but, like, multiple.
A group of people.
I really hate it when they do that. But,
Yeah.
like, I love this choice. I love this choice.
The front of their magazine says, Time Person of the Year, the Silence Breakers, the voices that launched a movement. And they got all these different women that have come forward and accused men of sexually assaulting them, all wearing black and looking sad.
So this is, like, big-time mainstream media, like, legitimization of the Me Tooism.
That is a Taylor Swift. I'm sorry. They've got Ashley Judd, Susan Fowler, Adama Iwu, Taylor Swift, and Isabel Pascual. So they got famous women.
Why is Taylor Swift on it? She
I don't
talked
know.
about
I never
things?
heard her.
I haven't heard.
Yeah, because that one guy grabbed her butt. This was
I
like
don't
last
remember
year,
this.
though.
I don't remember that.
Anyways, we're getting off topic, but
yeah.
I love Taylor Swift. That's why.
But yeah, this is the mainstream media giving, like, credence to Me Tooism. And do it. Please do it. Make it to the point where, like, you can't even, like, say anything against these women because it's not harming us at all, as it seems to be. And, you know, I've been seeing, like, more and more of these Republicans talk about how they're adopting, like, similar, like, rules for the personal conduct like Mike Pence has, to where, you know, they're not seeing women, like, alone or anything or after, like, certain times. I assure you Democrats aren't doing that.
Yeah, if every single person would just follow the Mike Pence rule, which is never have, like, a solo meeting with another woman unless there's another woman president or another man president. Never be alone with a woman that's not your wife or, like, a close family member in a room. And that's not to protect her. That is to protect yourself from anything that they might in the future say. You're the one person who's never, ever going to be accused of any sexual misconduct is going to be Mike Pence because of this rule. You know, when I was in a class, I was in, like, some, like, one of my business classes that I was taking a couple semesters ago. We had a guy who was from Houston who was talking about it and said that he had a similar policy. He's like, you know, I don't have dinner or I don't have lunch meetings with women unless there's multiple women. He pretty much was saying, I follow the Mike Pence rule. And people in the class were complaining to him, saying, oh, does that give favoritism to men? And he flat out said, he said, no, I don't want to be accused of anything that I didn't do.
Yeah.
And this was like a year ago.
If
That same guy was to come back and speak to the class, he'd be citing these stories. See, I told you so.
They teach you in education classes as well, like, do not be alone with a student of the opposite gender in your room. Make sure your door's open. Make sure there's other people there. You know, it's scary stuff because, like, especially as men, the accusations that can be levied against us, they don't need to prove anything, as we see with this Me Too stuff. And it is extremely dangerous and extremely scary. But, I'm kind of just down for it right now because it's destroying my political opponents. And, like, you know, you have to keep things like Alinsky's rules for radicals in mind. One of his rules, and this was, you know, Alinsky, he wrote the book on how to get power from the haves to the have-nots. So it's for people that don't have power. You know, it's to use against your political opponents. And he was leftist and he used it, but on the right we need to use it as well. So you need to hold your opponents, one of his rules was, hold your opponents to their rules. So, the Democrats have, like, extremely high thresholds, or, like, extremely low thresholds on their Me Tooism stuff, as we've seen with, like, Al Franken. We need to hold them to that standard. Every single accusation against a Democrat we need to acknowledge as legitimate, because there's no reason we shouldn't be doing this. I love it. Do not mess up an opponent when they're making mistakes. Or do not correct an opponent when they're making mistakes.
And they're making all the mistakes right now.
It's great stuff.
I'm just going to step back and let it happen.
And this ties into
the next story we have,
which is also related to Me Tooism.
Mm-hmm. And that is prominent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge Alex Kozinski has been accused of sexual misconduct. They said a former clerk of his said that he called her into his office several times, pulled up pornography on his computer, and asked her if she thought it was photoshopped or if it aroused her sexually. Her name is Heidi Bond. She clerked for him from 2006 to 2007. And she said the porn was not related to any case that they were discussing at the time.
That's some pretty creepy stuff.
He would just literally call her in and be like, hey, come look at this. Do you think this is photoshopped? Or does it turn you on, girl? And she was like, this is kind of weird. He said he had like a digital flip book of images that allowed users to mix and match heads, torsos, and legs to create an image of a naked woman. She's one of 6 women who have actually all were former clerks or junior staffers who have now alleged him that this guy
sexually
has
harassed
been sexual misconduct is what I like to use, because not all of it's assault, not all of it's harassment, but just like stuff that shouldn't be going on. That's why I like to use the term sexual harassment or sexual misconduct instead. So yeah, this guy has been a judge for 35 years. He's had over 500 employees. This is the guy, whenever you hear Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals strikes something down against Trump, this is the guy who's saying that stuff.
Yeah.
This is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you look at this guy, he looks like, what you picture most of these guys look like. Harvey Weinstein types.
Yeah.
Is what he looks like. So, just saying.
It's time for him to get drained, too.
I think, if none of those 6 women who come forward, if Trump was to arrest this guy, like, if one of these women had a case that, like, went to the courts, hopefully he doesn't go to the Ninth Circuit Court. Can you imagine him trying to rule against himself? He'd have to recuse himself. At that point, it doesn't matter. We win. This guy's got to go. He's got to go.
It's time to go, dude. So, yeah, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal is out of control, and a lot to do with this judge, and he's about to go soon. So, good stuff.
Yep. And so, transitioning to the next story, also out of California, this is really, really funny. California is now being sued because not enough children can read. Did you know that, Enzo?
Yeah, because I've read this before.
I know.
But
So this was the advocacy firm is the Public Counsel. They filed the lawsuit in the Los Angeles Superior Court to demand the California Department of Education address its literary crisis. Now, if you wonder what the literary crisis is, I'm going to tell you. Assessments found that less than half of California students from the 3rd grade to the 5th grade have met statewide literacy standards since 2015. Of the 26 lowest performing districts in the nation, 11 are in California. Texas, the largest state after California, had only 1 district among the 26.
We don't have good education either.
And our education system in Texas sucks.
Yeah, I'm not going up to bat for that.
But think about this. Less than half of California students from 3rd grade to the 5th grade met statewide literacy standards since 2015.
That's very low.
That is extremely bad.
It might have something to do with like the households speaking in Spanish numbers that we've talked about in the past in California.
That's true.
They might just not speak English whatsoever.
I think that has a lot to do with it. Here's some more statistics. State assessments found 96% of students at the school, and this is one of the schools they were talking about.
La Salle Avenue Elementary.
Thank you.
Los Angeles.
Which is in Los Angeles, yeah. 96% of students at the school were not proficient in English or math. Maybe because they don't speak English and therefore can't do math. According to one lawsuit, only 8 of the school's 179 students were found to be proficient when tested last year. 8 out of 179.
Just looking down here, David Moch, another plaintiff, is a retired teacher who taught at LaSalle for 18 years. Mooch said he had fifth graders in his kindergarten class. Teachers were not given training or help to deal with the situation, and programs that did seem to make a dent were discontinued.
Sorry. Keep
Quote, I choose to teach at LaSalle because I want to help. Every day I was there, I witnessed students' lack of access to literacy.
You know what? There is actually only one solution I think that would work best at this, Ento. We need to throw more money in education.
That's the thing, as far as, allotted money for education, California is the highest in the nation, I believe. I don't know if per capita, but I mean overall, yes.
Well,
but
it
per
would make
capita,
sense
it's
that
one of the
overall
highest
is
as
their
well.
biggest, but...
Yeah, but per capita, I know they also are up there.
Yeah.
So, it's not a matter of money. They just don't run these schools well. But, I mean, it's a crazy liberal loony place. I'm surprised they do anything well, so who knows?
That 96% number seems a little too high for me.
Yeah, not good stuff.
You're telling me only 96% of your students can't speak English well or can't do math well? Only 96% can't? It's way too low. Way too low.
Well, it's because we've talked in the show before, Baltimore has a lot of problems with their schools.
Oh, yeah, that was almost as bad as this.
The numbers are pretty much the same. I mean, there was entire schools where, it was similar, 95, 96% weren't meeting state literacy.
They say not one student was able to meet the
I believe
standards.
there were some that had no students. But yeah, a lot of Democrat-run places don't do education so well, even though they want so much money for it. And you look at cities in particular, Baltimore, per capita is one of the highest per student in spending. It's not a factor of money, and that's what people need to realize about education. But yeah, not good stuff.
And hopefully the schools don't burn down when this wildfire hits them, which is the next story we got. So if you haven't been following along, Southern California is being hit with yet another major wildfire. This one, this is kind of an old article that we're reading now. It's from a couple days ago, but at the time they said that it was jumping the highways, which, if you don't know, when fires get to highways, it's hard for them to cross because it's just pavement.
Yeah.
But when the winds are so strong, and if the area is dry enough, little sparks and stuff will cross the highways. Normally, you look at stuff, once it gets to a highway or a road, it stops. It doesn't cross it. This stuff is jumping every highway it's coming across. I mean, there's pictures. They look almost apocalyptic. People driving down the road at night. The entire side of the mountain is on fire.
Yeah, I've seen these photos.
It's not good. Not good at all. But
thousands have been evacuated already.
Thousands have been evacuated. I'm not sure how many deaths. I think there's been a couple, not too many, but, people's homes completely burned up. I mean, this stuff happens all the time, but this one's so much worse. They even said that the HBO show Westworld, I'm sure you've heard of it.
No.
It's one of the most popular HBO shows besides Game of Thrones. They actually were filming out there at the time. They've halted production on the current season until the wildfires pass because they're unable to do it. That's some of the stuff that you don't really think about it. They said most of the time the fire was burning near the LA exclusive Bel Air neighborhood and Getty Center for the Arts. So hopefully Will Smith is Fresh Prince on his way back to Philadelphia, so he doesn't have to deal with the fire. But it's really sad thinking about that because as much as I don't like California, I also don't like wildfires destroying things that shouldn't be destroyed. So,
and also, after Texas, California is our biggest in-state, in the United States state for, listeners. So there's a lot of people in California that probably know what's going down better than we do.
Yeah, and I don't want bad things to happen to the people that
we
live
hope
there.
the best for you. We don't like your state, but, still.
Hey, I might sound insensitive when I say this, but if an illegal immigrant's home burns down, maybe they'll go back.
Oh, God.
Hopefully not, because that means they probably destroy regular people's houses too, and I don't want that to happen. So
yeah,
it's the one time I'm going to say I hope everyone makes it out safely and doesn't lose anything.
Let's talk about some gun stuff. There's some good stuff that came out this week.
There is a couple good things, but specifically the wife of Omar Mateen, who was the Pulse nightclub shooter back from.
Oh yeah, I skipped over. Sorry,
did you skip? Did I skip something?
No. Mention the Omar Mateen thing.
Okay, well. His wife, who is, I want to see if I can find her name, Noor Salman. She now is being forced to stand trial, according to a judge order from last Wednesday. She's being charged with providing material support to a terror organization and obstruction of justice, according to the Orlando Sentinel. This all has to do with the shooting. Pretty much, we were saying that she was involved in it. She knew about it ahead of time.
Initially, when this happened, they didn't arrest the wife.
No,
they didn't think to do that.
They didn't. But the thing is, in terms of, people talk about, well, what if she's trying to plead the fifth? There's something people need to know about pleading the fifth, okay? When you plead the fifth, you have the right to remain silent. You can sit there the entire time and not say a thing. That's one thing. But if you make a statement saying that you know something that the police want to know, and it's not incriminating to you, but you don't get to know, but you don't get to use plead the fifth. You get charged with obstruction of justice. So, if say there's a murder, and you know who did it, and you tell the police, yeah, I know who did it, and you weren't involved in any way whatsoever, you can't plead the fifth.
You still have to.
You have to tell them. You can be forced to. You can sit there and not say a word. It's questionable about whether or not that's obstruction of justice. That's even still debate to this day.
It's not going to be good for you.
But you can't refuse to tell them, which, I guess it's the same thing. If they know that you know, and you know that they know that you can't refuse to tell them, because that's obstruction of justice. That's kind of what's going on here, because they're saying that she either helped him along the way, she knew it was going to happen, she knew information, she didn't tell the police. She's going to stand trial now, so worth noting there.
So yeah, on the gun thing, I jumped the gun there, but yeah. So the House has approved nationwide concealed carry how do you say that?
Reciprocity. Pretty much what this means is, if you have a concealed carry license in one state, other states have to honor it as well. This is the same thing that got gay marriage legalized in all 50 states. If one state can recognize your gay marriage license, every state has to recognize it.
Yeah.
Thus essentially legalizing it throughout the entire country. Same thing here, except they're going through legislation. What this bill, which passed 231 to 198 in the House, along party lines, obviously, if you have a concealed carry permit in one state or a license to carry a weapon in one state, other states must honor that as well. Which essentially would mean that you can carry. That essentially means that you don't even need to carry a license to carry. Because think about states like Missouri. Missouri has constitutional carry. You don't even need a license. As long as you legally own the gun that you're carrying, you essentially don't need a license to conceal carry. Other states do issue licenses, like Texas issues licenses. But if you're in California, they're going to be like, ha ha ha, no, you can't do that. Now, you could, granted, this still has to go through the Senate, which if it goes through the Senate, Trump's going to sign this thing into law. So this is not law yet.
Senate.
I think it should pass the Senate. As much as I don't like the guys who like to cuck on us in the Senate, they seem to be pretty good when it comes to gun stuff.
Usually Republicans are good on that, so I don't think there's excuses for people to not vote for this thing. But it'll be another good Christmas present for the American people to give them, their guns back.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, say anything about myself, but I plan on buying a new gun soon, and it would be great if I could still carry that somewhere else.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the Senate does. I have my doubts that they'll even bring this up for a vote before the Christmas break that they take. So who knows? They might. If they do, that's fantastic. But we'll see what happens there. Hopefully the Senate passes that. But just know that the House is doing that right now. When you're wondering what's the House doing right now, they're helping you out.
Yeah. Let's go on to some secret Democrat slush fund stuff. I feel like
more of them, you say?
Yeah. I feel like we find a new one every couple weeks. Mm-hmm. So here's the newest one. Consultants who worked for the highly politicized Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which, if you don't know, that's something that Elizabeth Warren came up with, claims the organization funneled a large portion of over $5 billion in collected penalties to community organizers aligned with Democrats as part of a giant slush fund, the Washington Post reports. Created 6 years ago as the brainchild of Senator Elizabeth Warren and dipped into the Dodd-Frank bill before it was passed by congressional Democrats, the CFPB became one of the most powerful agencies in D.C. and with the ability to exercise enormous power over the economy while its budgets remained unencumbered by congressional oversight. So yeah, there was no way that we could watch the budgets on these things, how they put it in the Dodd-Frank bill. They did that on purpose.
Of course.
And this was never supposed to fall into Trump's hands. They just thought Clinton was going to win, so no one was ever going to investigate what they're doing with this. But Trump inherited this, and he put his guys to work. He appointed Trump did Mick Mulvaney last week, following the resignation of their former director Richard Cordray. So now he, in his first order of business, has put a 30-day freeze on new hiring and regulations, and it's time to drain some swamps.
Looks like we're going to get a lot of swamp draining this winter.
So yeah, potentially up to $5 billion was given to community organizers aligned with Democrats, along with other things. The CFPB bounced business owners and industry reps from secret meetings it held with Democrat operatives, radical civil rights activists, trial lawyers, and other community advisors, according to a report by the House Financial Services Committee. It retained GMMB, the liberal advocacy group that created ads for the Obama and Hillary presidential campaign, for more than $40 million, making the Democrat shop the sole recipient of CFPB's advertising expenditure.
Amazing.
So yeah, $40 billion to their friends. Not billion, million. Met behind closed doors to craft financial regulatory policy with notorious bank shakedown groups who have taken hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal grant money to gin up housing and lending discrimination complaints, which is in turn are fed back to the CFPB, according to Investors Business Daily and Judicial Watch. So, they're causing their own problems that they get to solve. And where does the money stay? In-house.
Yeah. Do you see the next paragraph after here? I can read it.
Yeah, you can.
This is probably the worst part. Moreover, the CFPB secretly assembled several massive customer databases which raise privacy and corporate liability concerns. One sweeps up personal credit card information, and another compiles the data on as many as 230 million mortgage applications focusing on race and ethnicity, according to The Hill. Another database contains over 900,000 unvetted grievances against financial companies, points out that Alan Kaplinsky, lead regulatory attorney for Ballard Spahr LLP. Think of a database of Google's depth, but used solely by the government. So this is the type of stuff that Mick Mulvaney is going to be going after now.
A lot of swamp. This is some really bad stuff. What they're up to.
Swamp of the swamp.
Yeah.
If we just discovered this, how much more stuff like this out? There's tons of stuff like this out there.
This kind of stuff like this was standard practice through the Obama years,
even the Bush years too.
Yeah, it's funny how these liberals always say like, "Oh, there was no controversy under Obama," because he hid his stuff well, and this stuff was never supposed to come out. But we've uncovered so much corruption that we've inherited Obama, and Trump's the one that's tasked with removing it, and we're going to do that because we're not putting up with this stuff anymore. So, good stuff on that. Really, staggering news to find out about, though. But, yeah, another Democrat slush fund. Let's go to the last story we have before current year college craziness. And this is more of a humorous story, but it's also, infuriating, you know? So, a Philadelphia councilwoman, she's obviously a Democrat, wants to ban bulletproof glass for being racist. So the woman, Cindy Bass, a councilwoman for Philadelphia's 8th District, has filed a bill that would make store owners take down plexiglass in certain areas of town. According to Bass, having thick, safe plexiglass up in a store is an insult and an indignity. Essentially, plexiglass is racist. Now, what's happening with this? You want the lowdown? So, a lot of store owners in these neighborhoods are
predominantly African American neighborhoods.
These are predominantly African American neighborhoods she's talking about. But a lot of times, the store owners in these areas are Korean.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't feel safe entirely to be in these neighborhoods. I'm also including like African American business owners, white business owners, but oftentimes it's Korean. That's how these things
Are they
go.
rooftop Koreans?
That's kind of where that thing comes up from. But they install, plexiglass because these are dangerous neighborhoods oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
But she's saying that you're only doing that because you think it's dangerous because it has black people. So I'm going to pass a bill where you can't have safety glass. So your store can just be robbed.
And you can be killed.
Yeah.
She's literally saying, I want people to be killed because they're racist for wanting to stay alive. That's essentially what she's saying. There's no other way to put it through that.
Yeah, but, the plexiglass is an indignity, so you can't have that.
And even the plexiglass doesn't do everything. I mean, there's a business owner here they're talking about in this article how plexiglass saved his eyesight. So this guy was named Bill Chow, so he sounds Korean. He said one day a thug claimed that Chow had shorted him on change. As a result, the guy threw bleach at him through the opening in the plexiglass. So if the plexiglass wasn't there, most of it hit the plexiglass, but a little bit of it went through the little hole. If that hole had been the entire thing, if there was no plexiglass there, the guy could have lost his eyesight because it threw it right at his face.
But this lady, Bass, doesn't want him to have any plexiglass.
She wants him to be blind.
Okay. He just needs to go blind because otherwise you're microaggressing African Americans because this is how things work apparently.
And it's funny, she says, quote, I would never want to be part of a bill that would put somebody in jeopardy. Well, that's exactly what you're doing, is putting people in jeopardy. That is exactly what you're doing. There's no other way to look at it.
Yeah.
There literally is no other way to look at it. This is exactly the point that she wants to do, is she wants people to rob them. She can't be that dumb to think that it is actually racist. She wants people to be able to rob these people.
I think she's just a grievance monger, and she's one of these councilwomen in these cities that, like, similar to taking down the monuments,
Mm-hmm.
she wants to say she did something for her people, African Americans, so then they'll vote for her again.
Yeah.
So, she's sticking up for them, which apparently means taking away the plexiglass from store owners. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I mean, the woman's stupid, so.
Yeah.
Let's do some current year college craziness.
We're doing great time right now, too.
Yeah.
Crap, I typed that in wrong. Okay, whenever you're ready to start it.
Current year college craziness, the segment of the show that keeps on giving every single week. There's crazy stuff. Last week, it was crazy, and we only did one article.
We did one article.
But this week, we got multiple, because they didn't write articles saying our DNA is an abomination this week. But, what a professor did say is a little problematic.
It has to do with steaks.
Yes, a professor says that...
I'm kind of hungry looking at this
professor
picture here.
says meat perpetuates hegemonic masculinity.
What is hegemonic masculinity?
Hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity implies an imperative to eat meat. This is from Professor Ann D'Alesso Parson, hyphenated last name.
It's always the hyphenated
Always
last
the
name.
hyphenated last names. Of Pennsylvania State University. She's a sociology professor.
Oh God, she wrote this in the Journal of Feminist Geography. What in the world is feminist geography? Why do they have a journal? This doesn't make any sense. Keep going.
Yeah, so to study the link between masculinity and meat, D'Alesso Parson interviewed 23 vegetarians who lived in Argentina to probe how they deal with their country's meat-centric culture, finding that being vegetarian itself is a political act. Vegetarians also contribute to the destabilization of the gender binary, she argued. Quote, the decision to become vegetarian does not itself destabilize gender, but the subsequent social interactions between vegetarian and meat-eater demand gender enactment or resistance. Refusing meat therefore presents opportunities in each social interaction for the binary to be called into question. What the?
Oh,
I read
God.
these all the time on the show, but it's just like, okay, now this.
I actually agree with her in one part that vegetarianism isn't just a lifestyle choice; it's a political act.
That's a feminist act.
It's a feminist act, even. I don't know about feminist act, but I actually tend to agree with her, at least in that one point. It is a political act to be maybe not necessarily a vegetarian, but a vegan.
Yeah.
Is definitely a political act.
Let me
She's
read
not
a
wrong
little,
about that.
Let me read a little quote on how it's a feminist act. Quote, women, one of the ways they push back against patriarchy, they say, this is my body. You don't get to tell me what comes in and out, which, shows how vegetarianism is a way women can assert their agency and their autonomy. So vegetarianism is a feminist act.
People are forcing women to eat meat? They're not
Well,
controlling
no,
what
it's
goes
more
in?
like, I'm an independent woman. I don't need no steak. My body, my choice.
So she's saying she wants to control the meat that goes in her.
Oh, God.
But if the meat... Oh, never mind. I could go on and make some perverted joke, but I'm just not going to.
That also ends pretty well, this article.
If she's not eating the meat's going to get beat either way. Go ahead.
Okay. She also noticed characteristics unique to male vegetarians, asserting that although many men in Argentina still have very hegemonic masculinity traits, male vegetarians seem more egalitarian and respectful, and more open about talks about how sexism
Because
exists.
they're a bunch of cucks.
Soy boys.
A bunch of soy boy cucks.
Like, she's negging the dudes at the end of the article and still saying, like, it's not enough. They still have hegemonic masculinity.
Hegemonic masculinity.
Yeah, so, that was the thing.
It's not to even say meat is murder. Meat is sexist.
Yeah, meat is hegemonic masculinity.
Hegemonic masculinity.
It is.
Oh, the next story's got our favorite college in it.
Evergreen College is back. They're back. Evergreen
back.
State College is back.
They've been a little quiet for a while, but they're back.
Been a little quiet, but they come back with a bang. Evergreen State's student newspaper now includes a no whites allowed opinion section.
Oh, I know someone who might want to write for that.
Yeah, Rudy Martinez would be a mainstay at this place. But the column in general is actually an anonymous column.
Oh, okay.
The student's newspaper at Evergreen State College has the section's opinion pages described as for people of color, by people of color. Quote, this should be a place where we can be us without it being overshadowed by the dark cloud that is living under white supremacy and having to see things from a white perspective. This is why when we do cover these issues, it will be in the context and from the perspective of POC and only POC, according to the section's editors, as it was reintroduced to the readers in September. The anonymous column is known as POC Talk, debuting in the bi-weekly Cooper Point Journal last year, and returned this fall to the newspaper's page following racial unrest that erupted at the public university this past spring. Quote, Dear white people, please take a step back. This isn't brown people answer white people's question hour. We're asking specifically for submissions from POC. As being told, no seems to be a difficult concept for some of y'all's. I await your emails about the Irish. This is so poorly written.
Yeah, I know.
This is not even me.
You're not struggling, like, you're not, like, stupid or anything trying to, like, mess this up. Like, it's legitimately, like, formatted terribly.
Yeah. Which is great that
I know.
They're writers. How the term white fragility is mean. Then parentheses, they have a great example of white fragility. And how we need to view people through a colorblind lens. And then in parentheses, it's like just LOL. You will 100% not get a response. And then there's 4 exclamation points.
3, actually.
Oh yeah, 3.
That's the one part you did screw up. I'm just kidding.
My eyes were wrong on it.
You will 100% not get a response. So were they saying like, go ahead and write for us, and no one's going to care?
No, they say don't send in things. They only want submissions from POC. If you're a white person sending in all these emails about the Irish or white fragility,
but if it's anonymous
or being colorblind, I don't know.
But Enzo, if it's anonymous, how do they?
Well, they probably want you to identify yourself in the.
But it'll be anonymous when they publish it.
Yeah, the editors, the person.
I know one article for a fact that they will run.
What?
It's called "Our DNA is an Abomination."
Should send that in.
We should send it in under the name Nuber de Martinez. I bet you they would publish it. I bet you.
I feel like they would already heard about it.
They probably have already retweeted it themselves.
Maybe we'll write them our own unique story for them. I don't know.
And then when they write about us, then we can say that we made their newspaper.
Yeah, but a no whites allowed opinion section. Evergreen College is back. They're back. You know, thought they're done, but they came back. So I'm really proud of them.
Just when you thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Exactly. So the next story we have for Current Year College Craziness is from Kutztown University, which I believe is in the D.C. area.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I might be wrong. But it's from Dr. Mauricia John. This is not something that Mauricia is doing anymore, but was looking to do. She was going to have her students have the opportunity to receive extra credit by going to a faculty-sponsored rally and signing to form... Okay, let me start over. They will get extra credit by going to a rally against the GOP tax bill, which is faculty-sponsored, and they sign a form to prove their attendance, but the faculty spokesman has insisted that the event was not political in any way.
Kutztown University is about 2 hours outside of Philadelphia. Go northwest of Philadelphia, about 2 hours in. It's like right in the middle of nowhere.
I knew it was an East Coast school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thrown off. So, this is not something that's going to happen anymore, but she was going to give her students extra credit to go to a rally against the GOP tax bill. But it's not political in any way, as the faculty spokesman has insisted.
Please, I don't know if you read this. Please join your faculty as we rally. You read that part, right?
I haven't read it out loud. You can read it now.
Okay. Please join your faculty as we rally against the GOP tax bill that has serious implications to you and in higher education. This is an opportunity to gain an additional extra credit, John's email stated, with a bolded subject line of additional extra credit opportunity.
That was originally the email out to the students.
Right.
Now, they're not allowed to do that anymore, so there was a new email. This is that email.
Okay.
Please note that the extra credit signed announced yesterday is no longer available. I encourage you to complete the extra credit assignment under the discussion D2L if you would like the opportunity to do so. So what is under D2L? You get to write a brief reflection on whether the wage gap between men and women in the U.S. will ever close.
Not even that it exists, but will it ever close?
Will it ever close?
I bet you if you wrote it saying it doesn't exist and you had examples as to why it doesn't exist, they probably wouldn't give you extra credit.
So, yeah. This isn't a politically motivated professor whatsoever.
Of course not, no.
Whatsoever. Just come to my anti-GOP tax bill rally. I'll give you extra credit.
And there you go.
There you go.
Oh, this next story.
What's next?
Oh, I love this. I would get kicked out for what I'm doing right now.
Did you see the video?
No, there's a video too?
Yeah, there's a video.
Oh
of
my
this.
goodness.
So, members of the Fordham University College Republicans, they went to their on-campus coffee shop. It's like a student collective. It's a student-run coffee house by like a club.
Fordham University is in New York City, by the way.
Yeah.
It's in the Bronx.
It's called the Rodrigue Coffee Shop, and it has a safe space policy. So the college Republicans were there. They're wearing their Trump hats. This is all on video. a lady claims to be the president of the Rodrigue Coffee House and like starts yelling at them to leave and saying that they have 5 minutes to get out. She said, quote, "I am protecting my customers." And then one of the guys in the College Republicans responds, "We are your customers. We bought something." And she says back, "I don't want people like you supporting this club. No one here wants people like you supporting our club. I'm giving you 5 minutes." One of the kids in the video says, like, he wants a refund. Mm-hmm. And then she says, "You had some coffee. Do not try to outsmart me."
Oh, I like this next quote. She says,
Yeah.
"You are threatening the integrity of our club. This is a community standard. You are wearing hats that completely violate safe space policy. You have to take it off or you have to go." And one of the students then asked the president to explain what she thinks of the MAGA hat stands for, to which she replied shouting, quote, "Fascism! Nazis! You have 3 minutes!"
So yeah, one of the guys, and you could see he takes the photo. She gets really mad that he does this, but like he takes a photo of the safe space policy. Mm-hmm. So why don't we read that? Rodrigue's Coffee House has a safe space policy. Rodriguez strives to be a safer space on Fordham's campus. For these reasons, consider the following. Do not make assumptions about someone's gender, sexuality, race, class, or experiences. Be aware of your own identity, while being considerate of the personhood of your peers. Be mindful of the ways in which your words and actions impact others. Be aware of the boundaries of others' space, physical or otherwise, and respect their consent. No racism, no sexism, no homophobia. If you feel that someone has transgressed this policy, we want you to feel comfortable confronting them or approaching a member behind the counter who is available as a resource to assist you.
Interesting. It's interesting. They said that in a 2013 profile in the Fordham Ram begins by declaring that Rodriguez is open to all, even reiterating that the shop is, quote, "is the only on-campus club that provides a daily tangible service to all members of the Fordham community through low-priced, organic, and fair trade coffee drinks, as well as an open community space."
Unless you have a Trump hat on. Unless you have a Trump hat on. But yeah, kind of a crazy story. The video is great. I recommend watching the video. It's only about a minute long.
I'll have to watch this once we're done.
It's on Campus Forum. Just look up Campus Coffee Shop Evicts College Republicans from Safe Space. But it is some really good stuff. But yeah, the guys in the College Republicans say, like, yeah, we pay tuition. Why are we being denied access to parts of the college? Pretty legitimate complaints.
You know what I would like to do? I'd like to start a coffee shop for only Trump supporters, having a unsafe space policy.
Oh, that place would get taken down.
If you want to be a liberal, you're not allowed to eat here. You're not allowed to drink here. And you must be wearing a MAGA hat or like a suit and tie or, something that productive.
You wouldn't be allowed to do that on campus, but you shouldn't be allowed to do what they did on campus. But they got away with it. But Campus Forum reached out to Fordham about the matter, but they haven't responded yet.
Of course not. So, then they won't. They won't respond.
Okay, so let's go to the last story for community college craziness, and that is Harvard University.
Ivy League now. Sweet.
Ivy League, the big leagues. Harvard University has formally adopted sanctions on single-gender clubs. Harvard University announced Tuesday that it would officially adopt an interim policy forbidding members of unrecognized single-gender social organizations, or USGSOs, from serving in leadership positions on campus or receiving prestigious fellowships. The school insists that the policy does not punish students, saying it merely serves as a reminder that student leaders are expected to exemplify the characteristics of non-discrimination and inclusivity. Although, according to a recent survey conducted by the school's newspaper, 60% of students want to see the sanction lift.
And that's, 60% of students that go to Harvard, those are extremely liberal people that are being accepted there and going to that college. So that's even 60% of super liberal students think that policy needs to be removed. Think about that.
So when they talk about, your USGSOs, your unrecognized single-gender social organizations. I may be wrong, but I believe I'm correct.
Okay.
Recently, Harvard banned fraternities and sororities. So all these groups became unofficial because their gender is segregated. The people at Harvard are so offended that you would segregate by gender. You would have gender-exclusive groups. That's not inclusivity. It's about accepting everyone for everything and anything. So you can't have these organizations. And now they pass these sanctions where if you want to be in like some sort of leadership position on campus, you don't get to be it.
Nope.
And they say it's not a punishment, yet it's not available for you. So it's kind of Orwellian.
I like there's a quote here. It says, diversity is central to our obligations to society and to our students. It is central to the very organization of the college, which emphasizes a residential undergraduate experience, where students are randomly assigned to the houses as a means of maximizing each other's exposure to people unlike themselves. That's a bad idea. I've been randomly put in stuff and I hated every person there.
Yeah.
But I'll continue. Indeed, we are in the midst of a lawsuit as well as an investigation by the United States government in which we are vigorously defending these bedrock commitments. So, like, the United States government's already going after them for, like,
being
things
stupid.
that they're doing regarding this.
Insane. But they'll continue.
Of course.
Because they're so ideologically committed to inclusivity and diversity.
You remember back when, like, going to Harvard or going to an Ivy League school meant something? I mean, nowadays, if I was someone who was, like, in charge of hiring, if I saw that you went to Harvard and Ivy League school, I would reject your application immediately.
It means something, but, like, it means you're just rich.
It means you're rich. You know, I hate to use the word privileged, but, like, you kind of understand what I mean.
Or you're, like, in affirmative action, like,
Yeah.
someone that they brought in.
But, like, I don't want people like that to be working for me.
No.
Because those colleges breed a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Kind of an ideologically Puritan type of liberal.
They're religious.
Yeah. Not even religious.
They're
anymore.
religious without being religious. They're religious about diversity.
Exactly.
And inclusivity.
And you get, I hate to use the word brainwash, but essentially, like, the students who are going there already are those types of people.
Yeah.
And
At the tune
students
of, like,
that aren't those types of
100,000 a
people
year.
will be by the time they get out.
Yeah.
I don't want any of those people working for me. So, like, that alone. I'd probably be more successful in the company that does hire them, but that's just me.
Yeah. So with that, that's current year college craziness for the week. We're going to go to a short break. We'll come back. We'll do some international news, and we'll bang this thing out.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into some international news, and we're going to kick it off in the Middle East because there's been a lot of commotion. I think Trump said something.
Yeah, Trump made a little decision saying that he wants to formally recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and wants to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Now, this is something a lot of presidents have talked about, for decades.
There's a viral video going around of George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and I think Bill Clinton, too, all saying that they wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is just Trump being Trump. This is like something like presidents have been trying to do this for a
Although
long time.
this is something he promised he'd do during the campaign. Now, it's been interesting because this has been on my mind a lot because, I mean, I'm not a big, like, pro-Israel guy. That's obvious. I've said this before many times on the show. But you support the move to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And I don't. So this is one of those interesting things where we do actually disagree on things for once. So why do you think the capital should be Jerusalem?
Because I'm a Bible accelerationist.
A Bible accelerationist.
If the events of Revelation, the rapture, or tribulation, if any of that's all true, I want it to happen as quickly as possible. And that only happens when Jerusalem is the center focus of all these things that go on. And I have a feeling that anytime someone does something like this that gets everyone's panties in the wad over there, is one step closer to anything actually happening. If it wasn't because of that, I honestly wouldn't even care.
Yeah. And I predominantly don't care. But,
Yeah.
So, for me, the reason why I would just leave this in Tel Aviv is it's not worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
It's not worth the violence because you look at what's been going on the last couple of days. They've been having in the Palestinian sectors like the Day of Rages. Have you seen these things?
They said they want even more days of rage.
Yeah, Hamas called for what is it like an how do you say it, intifada or whatever?
I don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
They're calling for a holy war against Israel.
Oh, fantastic.
So stuff's getting bad and. Whenever this stuff happens, it's messy. There was a lot of airstrikes into Gaza, and, innocent people in Gaza were killed, and I just don't want to get involved. That's my thing, because, like, last week, Israel was firing missiles into Syria. They're firing at Iranian bases in Syria. And if anything pops off, the United States has to come and save them. And if anything happens because of all this new violence in, Israel, the United States, we have to come save them. I just don't want to do this.
And I don't want to do that either. But at the same time,
Bible acceleration
I'm a Bible accelerator. Hey, you read Revelation, people forget most of the tribulation is God having judgment against Israel for things Israel's done.
Yeah.
People forget that. Even Christians forget that. Like, it's not like Israel's the good guys 100% of the time. You do got to remember that, even as a Christian who likes Israel. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of Israel myself, but I do want to say one thing, though. All Trump did was say, I want to formally recognize Jerusalem as the capital, and these people freak out so much.
That's the one thing. Like, I feel like they
hasn't even done anything.
I feel like they feel entitled to violence.
Yes.
Like, the way that they talk about it is so strange. They're just like, oh, because Trump said this, we have to be violent. That's pretty much how they frame this. Like, you're not entitled to be violent. Fuck off. So, yeah. But, I don't know. Israel stuff, I don't like getting involved with. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. They said it's going to be delayed.
Of
moving
course.
the embassy.
It'll probably be delayed for...
At first I saw like 6 months, but now I've seen it could take up to 2 years.
It'll probably get delayed until, it'll continue to get delayed and delayed to where, like, it'll never actually happen. Yeah. That could be a possibility, but, who knows.
So the two other things for the Middle East, which I don't even really need to go too deep in,
These
but
are
we
both
can
really
just
good
say
news.
these. Good news. The Russians have declared total victory over ISIS in Syria, and at the same time, the Iraqi government has said they have liberated all of Iraq from ISIS.
Very good news.
So, ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, not in Iraq, not in Syria. Essentially defeated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has its affiliate groups around the world, and there's, cells in Western nations, but ISIS itself, as a nation, doesn't exist anymore.
Which is very, very good.
And,
Guess they're not
big
ISIS,
shout out.
there was.
Yeah. Big shout out to the Syrian army and the Russian army and the Iraqi army and the rest of their military for getting this stuff done. We did a good job too. We needed to help out the Iraqis a lot with the airstrikes, and we definitely dropped a lot of goddamn airstrikes when Trump became president.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump promised that we defeat ISIS quickly, and
And it
is.
Within the first year.
It's over. But
before Christmas.
But are people giving him that credit? No.
Of course not.
Of
No.
course not. But yeah, ISIS has kind of been dealt a final blow. So good stuff on that.
Mm-hmm.
Going on to some African news.
That's the bad news.
Yeah. So, more than 6 million migrants are waiting in countries around the Mediterranean to cross into Europe, according to a classified German government report leaked to Bild. Bild is it's like a German newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So, potentially, there currently is, I mean, not even saying potentially, there is 6 million African migrants waiting to cross the Mediterranean. Going from a quote from Michael Mueller, director of the United Nations office in Geneva, quote, "Young people all have cell phones and they can see what's happening in other parts of the world and they act as magnets." So when you watch the videos of the refugees, they all have phones and they're taking photos and they're Facebook Live-ing all their friends back in Ghana and they're like, "Damn, that looks cool, so I'm gonna come." So another quote from Gerhard Mueller, Germany's development minister, quote, "The biggest migration movements are still ahead. Africa's population will double in the next decades. Nigeria will grow to 400 million. In our digital age with the internet and mobile phones, everyone knows about our prosperity and lifestyle. 8 to 10 million migrants are still on the way." So this is a government minister, a German one, who's saying 8 to 10 million migrants are likely to come. And this is all on the back of the African Union, European Union summit they held in Ivory Coast back at the end of November. They're trying to make a plan that would mitigate, tens of millions of African migrants flooding into Europe, but they weren't able to come to any sort of basic resolution to stop it. So, they can just come at this point. They're just going to do it. They're going to do what they want to do. And can Europe handle this? Can Germany handle 8 to 10 million African migrants coming into the nation?
Europe can barely handle the 2 million African migrants they already have. How are you supposed to do 5 times as much?
Germany has around 3, I believe.
Oh, that's even worse.
But yeah, you're expecting several times over more
what you
to
already
come in.
have.
And, with employment of these people, of all the migrants that Germany has, it's only something like 38,000 are even employed, which is like less than 5%. So everyone that comes in is going on government assistance.
Immediately.
They're going to Germany because they get a lot of government assistance. They're going to Sweden, too, because they get a lot of government assistance. But, I mean, they're going to just go everywhere they can. Even poor places. Italy, you get migrants. Spain, you get migrants. So, not good stuff.
And not only that, there's a UN report on the population growth of Africa alone. More than half of the global population growth between now and 2050 will occur in Africa, according to the UN report. World Population Prospects, the 2017 revision. Africa's population is expected to jump by 1.3 billion from 1.2 billion in 2017 to 2.5 billion in 2050. Between 2017 and 2050, the populations of 26 African countries are projected to expand to at least double their current size. Much of Africa's population increase will occur in Nigeria, currently the world's 7th most populous country, according to the UN. By 2050, Nigeria will surpass the United States to become the world's 3rd largest country by population behind India and China. The population of India is expected to surpass that of China by 2024. Nigeria is not that big, and it's going to have more people than the United States. How are you ever supposed to...
Who's going to pay for all
There's
these
no way
people?
you can pay for this. Okay, look.
And here's another stat that's good to know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Africa currently is the youngest continent in the world. 60% of Africa's population is under 25, compared to 32% in North America and 27% in Europe. So, these African migrants, they can come into Europe, and, they're predominantly young guys. They'll be able to become young, quote-unquote.
Under 30.
They'll be able to become a sizable plurality in like a decade or 2 or 3. And then these countries will soon cease to be German whatsoever or French whatsoever. And there's no going back.
Mm-mm.
Bad stuff.
And what's interesting is the EU's 28 states have a GDP of 18 trillion. Africa as a whole has a GDP of 2 trillion.
Yeah.
And yet they're going to have half the world's population in 50 years?
Yeah, and think about this. How many people live in Africa right now? It's like what?
1.3 billion.
1.3 billion. And they're only producing like what? 1.4 trillion as GDP?
2 trillion total.
2 trillion total.
Okay. So it's like what, about $1.50 per person?
Yeah, these are like the least productive people in the world.
US GDP is like $50,000. Theirs is like $1.25
a person.
That's how bad it is.
That's how useless these people are. I mean, it's mean to say, but if you let millions of these people come into Germany, they're going to be useless. They're going to be burdens, and it's not going to be pretty.
I feel like, at some point someone's going to do something about it, but like at some point you're going to pass the point of no return.
Yeah.
And something needs to be done about that. And I don't know if that's just going to be like mass sterilization or something, but you cannot survive as a population, as a species, with that kind of explosion happening out there. You definitely can't let them into Europe.
It's just unsustainable. But like, okay, there's currently 6 million Africans, migrants, ready to cross the Mediterranean. The population's only going to boom more. There's going to be tens of millions that are going to try and follow these guys, all because they're posting on their Instagram, look at me, I made it to Germany, it's so great, I do nothing, and they give me money. Because, living off welfare in Germany is better than anything they could have ever achieved back home. So what's the point of working if, the stupid, foolish Germans are going to give you everything? It's insane, but that's the world we live with.
I mean, I've said before, I've said it again, something, not only just something drastic needs to happen to change
Well, let's go into the European news, because the first thing we have is something that they want to do, which is what they think could get people to leave, but I mean, we can be the judge of that.
Hey, at this point, my point of view on this sort of situation is, if it works, go for it.
So, Germany is offering refugees who have flooded into the country for money to go home. Germany is looking to give a one-time payment of $3,570.
The equivalent of that in euros, but
yeah. They're going to give it out in euros, but the equivalency of $3,570. You have to apply by the deadline of February 29th. But if you apply 28th. So, but if you get on the deadline and you go back home, they're going to give you half of the grant when you leave, and then half of it will be the other half will be given to you 6 to 8 months after you've gone home. But I don't know if it's gonna work at all.
I mean, they're saying that 8,600 refugees have already taken up the offer, but there are 115,000 rejected asylum seekers in Germany. So it's like,
yeah, this is for rejected asylum seekers.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention. Oh, and that number I said about the employments of German or refugees in Germany, they have it here. I was incorrect a bit. So there's only not 38,000; it's 34,000 refugees work, which is 2.8% of their refugees.
It's incredible. The problem is, okay, what do you got? 115,000 rejected asylum seekers. Germany has taken in 1.2 million migrants in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
115,000 going away.
And then they took in 900,000 in 2015.
Yeah, I'm saying that's last 2015, 2016.
Oh, okay.
They took in only 300,000 in 2016. Only 2.8% have jobs. It's like,
it's nothing.
you can't sustain this. You cannot sustain this.
But like, here's the thing. The German economy is doing better than the American economy right now. So like, and it's hate speech to talk about this there. They have less freedom to talk about these things than people in China have the ability to talk about these things at point. I mean, we've talked about...
China doesn't want Africans flooding their country.
No, they don't. In Germany, your house gets raided if you talk about these sort of things online. So, people just go along to go along. Things are still good for you right now, so why should you get mad? But you can't play that game indefinitely, and it's going to catch up with them, and it's going to be really insane because
It's going to get
society
violent.
it'll be violent. Society's it's gonna be tested, if not collapses.
You thought the economies of Europe were bad after World War One.
How do you come back from this?
They came back from that. They're not going to be able to come back from this. This is going to be 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Easy.
So
50 years from now, that is.
You want to go on to the thing from Sweden we have?
Yeah. So Sweden is now banning websites that list the ethnic origin of criminal suspects.
Yeah.
So in their move to try to be more inclusive and anti-diversity, that is. There was let's see here. According to the Swedish government, the data released by the website, this is talking about the search engine Lexbase, which is used to identify the ethnic origins of Swedish criminal suspects. The data is released by the website is too sensitive for the public and should be limited only to professionals like lawyers, journalists, and researchers. Previously, the website was protected under the Swedish Freedom of Expression Act, but the new legislation could limit what data they are allowed to release. In a statement posted to the website, Lexbase wrote, quote, "The right to read these public documents easily via Lexbase will, if the proposal is adopted, be reserved to professionals such as lawyers, journalists, and various companies." While Justice Minister Morgan Johansson said the journalistic activity would not be affected, he left the definition of what constitutes as journalistic activity open to question. So essentially, they have a website that you're able to search through criminal suspects like a database.
Yeah.
And it lists on there whether they're, African or native Swedish or stuff like that, ethnic origins of these people. Because of that reason, the Swedish government is shutting that website down and only allowing journalists and government officials to look at it. That's not good.
Yeah, because
they know it's a problem.
They know what this information would do to the public. They'll get mad.
Yeah.
They have a reason to be mad. You shouldn't have to be subjected to these
Sweden's
things.
already going to be a third world country by 2030.
Yeah, there's
And
many
now they're not even allowed to know about it.
No. And, it used to be a great place, but it got real bad real quick once they started taking in refugees by the boatloads. But they feel it's their duty to do so. I mean, it's hard to comprehend how these people think. But, I mean, they're not allowed to express themselves. It's similar to Germany, okay? The censorship's extremely harsh. It's an extremely left-wing state. It's considered one of the most feminist states in the world, which is funny because, they cover up for people that are rapists because they'd rather have rapists than racists. Even though I don't see how it's racist just to say, the people that are committing a lot of crime aren't from here.
And shouldn't be here and should be sent back.
Then don't need to be here. But you can't say that.
That's hate speech.
You can't say that out there.
It's hate speech.
It's hate speech. Yeah. Let's go on to some numbers I have on European immigration.
Which kind of it's kind of similar
all
to what
connected.
we're talking
All connected. I think I'll start off with the numbers that we have from Chatham House, which is a policy institute they have out in London.
Okay.
They have numbers on if you agree with a moratorium on Islamic immigration. So cutting off immigration to European nations from Islamic nations. And they found that, in general, in a collective average, 55% of Europeans want a moratorium on Islamic immigration.
So it seems like they're aware of it, though, But, they're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah. I can go through some specifics on
Yeah,
some
go ahead.
countries. So the highest approving or agreeing with the statement should further migration from mainly Muslim countries be stopped. Poland came in first with 71%, followed by Austria with 65%. France had Belgium's about 65%, France is about 61%. Germany 53%, Italy 51%, and the United Kingdom with 47%, and Spain with 41%. No country had a percentage that disagreed with that statement surpassed 32%. So in every
that was
single
in Spain, by the way.
Yes. So every single country had more people agree that there should be a moratorium than disagree by at least a factor of half, if not many times more than that. And then that's not even accounting disagree or agree, which is more than the disagree in every nation except Austria, but very slightly.
And Spain.
And Spain. So the numbers on that are just very interesting because these people just don't want it whatsoever for the most part. 55% of Europeans at large say they want to end it. Not even in between yes or no or disagree.
And that almost gives me hope too, because they know there's the problem.
Yeah.
And they want to stop the problem, but they can't do anything about the problem.
They're not
They
allowed
literally
to.
can't do anything. They're not allowed to.
We got some reports also out of the BBC on British people and their perception of Islam. A mere 28% of British people believe that Islam is compatible with British values. The other 72% believe that Islam is incompatible or are unsure. The poll also found that 43% of Britons believe Islam is a negative force in the United Kingdom. 31% think Islam promotes acts of violence in the UK, and 28% agree that Islam is an inherently violent religion.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, there's even some more research that was from Pew Research. Want me to go ahead and cover this?
Yeah, sure.
It found that a majority of Europeans, 59%, believe that Islamic migration increases the likelihood of terrorist attacks in Europe. Furthermore, strong majorities in Hungary, 72%, Italy, 69%, Poland, 66%, have negative views towards Islam as a religion itself. In the UK, just 20% of Muslims work full-time, while in Denmark, non-Western immigrants consume 59% of Denmark's tax surplus.
So
59% of Denmark's tax surplus is going to help pay for non-Western immigrants.
who aren't paying the taxes.
Right. It's unsustainable.
No, yeah, everything about this stuff is unsustainable, and a lot of people realize this. I mean, we talk about Germany, how it's so bad. Even Germany, 53% say there needs to be a moratorium on Islamic immigration. We joke about how cooked Germany is, but still, most people get it. But that's not going to happen. The politicians there aren't going to let it happen. And, if you let in these millions of migrants come and then you give them the ability to vote, it's not going to matter. So.
And they're going to elect their own people if you let that happen.
Yeah. I mean, in Belgium, they have a party just called Islam for the Migrants. And,
didn't they get someone elected?
I don't know yet.
They got like one person elected?
But, I mean, you're seeing this pop up around Europe. They're having migrant-based political parties now. And, the way demographics are going and this stuff, they'll just elect themselves president of France in, a couple decades. And there's a book that's actually written about it. I'm looking to read at some point, but I digress.
And like I said, at that point, there's no going back.
Yeah.
But, there is one country that seems to be also having some struggles that aren't migrant-related, and that is Russia. Because in our final story of the week, Russia has been banned by the International Olympic Committee from participating in the 2018 Winter Olympics that are going to be held in Seoul, South Korea. They said that they will be able to compete at the upcoming Pyeongchang Olympics as neutrals after the Russian Olympic Committee was suspended over evidence that the country ran an orchestrated doping program at the 2014 Sochi Olympic Games. So think about this. Russia hosts the Winter Olympics one session, and then the very next Winter Olympic Games, they're banned. Now, they did say individual Russians who are Olympians will be able to compete as long as, obviously they drug test and they're clean, but they have to compete under a neutral banner. Because if you ever watch the opening ceremony of Olympic Games, when they have the countries are coming in, they always have one that's called Independent Olympians. And that's Olympians that aren't being representative of any specific country.
So I have to do that.
They're pretty much going to stick them all there, and that's essentially going to become the Russians, essentially. Because it's going to be most of the Russians. The Russians want to do it. I mean, these people, they are Olympians. They want to participate. They're going to all be the independent ones. So you might as well just consider the independent ones. You might as well have them carrying a Russian flag.
Might as well let them just be Russia if they're going to do that.
Exactly.
But
the IOC also imposed a $15 million fine on the Russian Olympic Committee. So, hey, not good for Russia, but I mean, they're still going to be able to go. But, maybe, just don't have no doping programs.
That would
the
help.
Olympics are going to be in February, so that'll be fun to watch. Just a couple months away.
I didn't know it was that close.
Yeah, February.
Those are always fun to watch. Well, I guess with that, that's the show for the week. We blew through stuff pretty quick.
I like these shorter episodes.
Yeah, we aim to try and keep it under 3. We know not everyone wants to go 3 hours listening to things. We get it too. That's why we try to keep it concise. But just to go through things, I guess we could tease some stuff that we're doing this next week.
Sure, go ahead.
We are having, on Monday, me and Bobby are going to be interviewing a lady from the South African Family Relief Project. We'll be releasing that interview on Tuesday. We are interviewing Ed Mihalkinen, City Councilman number 3 in San Marcos, Texas. We'll be interviewing him on Wednesday. We'll release that Thursday. I can't say who's going to be on Sunday as a guest, but I mean, we'll figure it out. I'm the one that books people and
You're
stuff.
very good at doing this.
Yeah, I've gotten very good at making contacts. It's fun, but all I can say is we're gonna continue with the interviews because they're good stuff, and I'm getting better contacts for interviews as I do this stuff.
And the last thing I do want to mention, and I think we should go ahead and play this right now. Next Wednesday the 20th, we are recording Hillary Planet podcast number 3.
December 20th will be Hillary Planet podcast.
So that'll probably be out later that day, or maybe on Thursday the 21st.
Which
we'll remind you next Sunday in the next Sunday show, but we know everyone loves those. Looking forward to it.
They always do extremely well with the download numbers. If you don't know, Hillary Planet Podcast, it's an alternate reality podcast where Hillary Clinton won the presidency, and we're doing a podcast similar to Trump Public Radio, but we're the biggest supporters of Hillary Clinton, and things go bad, but we think it's great, and it's fun stuff. We're in character the whole time.
If you want to have a little preview, we're getting ready to fight Texas.
Yeah.
Because Texas seceded in the last episode. So.
It did. I recommend if you haven't listened to the first 2, go back. They're good stuff. With that, we're done for the week.
Yeah.
Have a good one, listener.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.